Hey guys. This is what if Naruto awakens his Rinnegan. Realization struck Nagato at Naruto's words. In his last moments, Nagato awakens Naruto's Rinnegan in an effort to atone for his mistakes. Now, unknown to Naruto and Konan, the last pair of Jiraiya's students are bound together by a higher calling to change the world for peace. This is a bond like no other. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start.
We are pain, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 1, Survivor. I understand, Naruto, Nagato wheezed, looking at the blonde-haired ninja. Nagato's body lay defenseless in front of the Konoha, moving up and down from light breathing. Naruto looked at him sternly, quickly going through everything that went on in his mind. After hearing Nagato's explanation for his doings, Naruto knew what he was going through, but the Konoha knew that it was the wrong way to go about the situation. Naruto finally broke Nagato's outer shell. That is why I have decided on a few things. Nagato returned. I will revive everyone I've killed recklessly. But before I do that, there is something you need to know. Naruto gazed upon the nearly lifeless man, now curious as to what the Rinnegan had to say. Konan looked at her friend as well, keeping quiet so she would not interrupt him. Her face was solemn, but unsure of which emotion she needed. There are things about your family that you don't know. Things that were so dangerous that most of your relatives were killed in order to prevent chaos, Nagato croaked. He looked at the boy whose facial features softened from confusion. The truth is, your family held a very powerful bloodline trait, Naruto. This trait was so deadly that during the Second Great Shinobi War, everyone made an attempt to kill them. Well, if they're all dead, then how does that relate to me? The blonde nin bluntly asked. Nagato looked down at the boy, and then curled his lips upward. 2 of them survived the war, Naruto. The leaf nin widened his eyes upon that response. Why, you mean, my father was a survivor? Nagato slightly chuckled, which followed by a hacking cough. Once he settled down, he continued. No, Naruto. Your mother was the one who survived. My mother? Naruto questioned. Nagato received glances from both Naruto and Konan, but merely shrugged them off with an indifferent composure. Yes, Naruto. Kushina Uzumaki was a survivor from the Shinobi War clan massacre. Her abilities were unawakened during the time of the massacre, so no one could tell her descent. She then moved to Konoha to hide from the killings and turned herself into a Konoha ninja. Naruto nodded at that, but then he realized something. Wait. If 2 of them survived, then who is the other one? Nagato looked at him with his breathing still ragged from chakra consumption. Then he dropped the seriousness that etched across his face to let out the gentlest smile he could muster, and replied. I am Naruto. Both Konan and the blonde-haired Jinchuriki face faulted at the Rinnegan wielder. What? Nagato. Is this true? Konan asked the red-headed man, who willingly shook his head in compliance. Yes, Konan, Naruto is my little cousin. The Konoha didn't know what to say about all of this new evidence. Everything he knew about himself and his heritage brought itself into a new light. All he did was drop to his knees and bang his hand on the floor. A few tears shed from his face, followed by chants of why. And I can't believe it. Obviously from the sudden realization that had taken place. Don't be sad, Naruto. It was supposed to happen this way. Naruto looked up at Nagato with teary eyes, who gave him a comforting smile. He then got back up and wiped his face with his sleeve, feeling as if a boy shouldn't cry. Oh, so that's why you wanted him last. Is that why we never caught him as well? Konan asked, unsure of the situation. Nagato shook his head in agreement. That, and because Naruto is just so powerful, a slight snicker escaped his lips. Any information received about Naruto, I simply destroyed. I didn't want my cousin treated like some animal, like he had been treated for most of his life. Naruto's eyes widened again at the statement, You've. That's right. I have been watching you ever since you became a ninja. I've watched you grow into what you are today, and to say I'm impressed is an understatement. For a while, I thought you would have rebelled, but you kept your head held high. I guess that's something I envy about you. The redhead lowered his view from wandering eyes and softly continued, that is why, before I go, I have something to give you. Approach me, Naruto. The Konohanin was wary, but did as was told by taking reluctant steps closer to the man. Naruto heard a soft click on the left and right arm braces that held Nagato's hands. His arms trembled weakly as he tried to release them from the arm cuffs. Finally, he extracted his hands only to have them flop to his sides. The blonde ninja climbed onto the mechanized, four-legged vehicle, getting within reach of the Rinnegan wielder. Nagato smiled at the boy before him as he lifted his arms. He brought them up in great difficulty, placing his thumbs on both cheeks underneath the eyes of the Konohanin's face. He then placed both his index fingers and middle fingers on Naruto's temples, gaining full attention of the boy. This may hurt a little at first, but it will go away in a moment, Nagato assured him, only to get a frightened look from the leaf ninja. The redhead then closed his eyes and began chanting a mantra, producing a lavender chakra through his fingers that seeped into Naruto's skin. Not even a moment later, the blonde ninja began screaming in agony. Gaiak! Naruto choked out as the mantra continued. More chakra dispersed through his fingers as Nagato proceeded with the chant, which made small steam formations begin to appear around said fingers. Naruto closed his eyes as a burning sensation swept through his entire body. He felt like he was in his own personal hell as fire seemed to invisibly consume the boy, making all of his nervous system react to the painful feeling. This lasted for another few seconds before, finally, Nagato released his grip, in turn making Naruto fall to the floor with steam protruding from the Akatsuki's former finger placements. The Konohanin made several attempts to vomit, but never succeeded as the feeling died slowly. Naruto fought to get back up by fumbling a few times on his feet, but managed to reach full height again. His eyes stung to the degree that he had to keep them shut for the time being. A minute or so passed as Nagato started up again. Alright, Naruto. You can open your eyes now. The blonde-haired boy opened them and blinked a few times before fully focusing again. Nagato looked at Naruto and gave him a slight smile and confidence. I have awakened your ability. The ability of the Rinnegan. It is not a full Rinnegan because you have not mastered it yet, but I don't see a problem with you increasing it to its fullest potential. Naruto looked at his reflection on one of the metal braces and realized that 2 violet rings had replaced his irises entirely. The scene caused him to jump back in amazement, in turn making him stumble over his own feet. Nagato started talking once Naruto jumped up to his feet again. Yes, your eyes have turned to Rinnegan, but it's never permanently that way. You can turn it on or off whenever you use it, sort of like the Byakugan from the Hyuga clan. The blonde nin shook his head as the Rinnegan faded into his normal ocean blue eyes. Conan was speechless. The boy who had fought against them for so long was, in actuality, Nagato's cousin, another holder of the Rinnegan. Nagato must have full trust in this boy. I have never seen him like this before, Conan thought as she gazed upon the two. A few minutes passed as Nagato finally spoke up. Naruto, I am sorry about what I have done. Hopefully you will use the Rinnegan better than I have. The blonde-haired ninja looked at Nagato, and then gave him a sad smile. By the time I have revived everyone, I will hopefully have moved on to a better place. My own peace. Wait. No! You can't die! Conan shouted as she watched the man prepare himself. He looked at her solemnly, as if he was contemplating something, then gave her a happy glare. It has to be done, Conan. I was foolish. I killed thousands of people trying to find an answer. Now I am paying for my actions. No! Please! I need you! I'll have no one left if you're gone, she returned. Naruto? Nagato called to him, completely ignoring his friend. The blonde Jinchuriki met the operator's gaze. Take care of Conan for me. Naruto nodded his head and watched as the Rinnegan wielder made a few hand signs to pour the rest of his chakra into the move. It took well over a minute before they witnessed Nagato's body go limp and all signs of life fade. Naruto sighed as he recalled everything that occurred previously. His very last family member died before his very eyes. A family member he never even knew he had. It brought on a feeling of remorse, which caused him to stifle tears by blinking a few times. Conan lay silent as she took in the information as well. Her best friend of many years revealed evidence that she never knew or didn't bother to put the pieces together. How could she have missed it? How could Nagato not tell her something of this importance? They were friends, right? I do remember something that happened when we received data regarding the Nine Tails. She looked at the blonde ninja falling into a not-so-distant memory. Flashback. Pain held himself primarily in the desk room of his house in Amegakure, assorting papers and scrolls alike on whereabouts of Jinchuriki and other information such as conditions of other villages and teammates of the Akatsuki. His office was rather dark, only lit up by a small lamp to his left. Bookshelves littered his office with hundreds of books old and new, and he had one massive wall-sized window looking out into the entire village. He came across the two-tailed Jinchuriki report and began glancing through the scroll looking for keywords containing any clues to her whereabouts. A knock rapped on his door, followed by a grunt from Pain signaling entrance to his office. Pain Taishu? Conan asked the orange-haired Akatsuki. Speak your matters, he replied, busy looking over the scroll. I have information regarding the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, she returned, pulling a scroll from a pouch underneath her cloak and placing it on his desk. Pain widened his eyes, placing them on the scroll. The Nine Tails? He reached his hand, laying it upon the wrapped paper. Then, with a swift motion, he opened the scroll. This was the first information he received of the Nine-Tailed Fox, so he wanted to read it as quickly as possible. Information came in the following. Report. Jinchuriki, Uzumaki Naruto. Age 12 years old. Demon Kitsune. Hashtag of tails, total of 9. Village of origin, Kanahigakure. Last known location, Kanahigakure. What? No, it can't be. He looked over it, and then over it a second time, a third time, even a fourth time until it finally sank in. Uzumaki. The name dripped from his tongue in astonishment. He hadn't heard that name in nearly 13 years, and to say he was shocked was a poor choice of words. He was speechless. Another Uzumaki is still alive? Another Uzumaki? He mused to himself. He had received word of Kushina's death, but never knew she bore a son, much less a son that now possessed the Jinchuriki. Is something wrong? Conan, confused in the situation, asked her longtime friend, only to receive a sharp glare from Pain. Send for Itachi immediately. Conan felt paralyzed from the sudden outburst for a second, only to shrug it off and disappear into paper. She appeared with Itachi moments later, who gave Pain a silent stare. Itachi, there is a matter that has to be handled with utmost importance. The Uchiha still seemed unfazed while quietly eyeing the head Akatsuki. Continue. There is a boy from Kanahigakure that possesses the Kyubi. I'm sure you have knowledge about the layout of Konoha. Itachi lightly nodded. That's why I need you to keep a full eye on this boy. Any new information you receive comes directly to me. I don't want anything happening to him. I want to be the one to face him. I'm sure you have an understanding as to why I'm doing this. The Uchiha raised a slight eyebrow from the barely noticeable signals the Akatsuki leader was gesturing. Conan didn't notice them, but Itachi very well did. He knew exactly what Pain was talking about, as if it were a mutual feeling that no one else could understand. Understood, Pain Taishu. And with that, the Uchiha disappeared by Shunshin. The orange-haired Akatsuki sat back down at his desk, unaware that he got up from his seat to relay the message. Conan looked at her friend, unsure of what was going on in his mind, but she knew that deep down something was troubling him. They've known each other for a long time, so it's not as if anything Pain does would go unnoticed by her. Feeling she needs to find the underlying cause of the situation, Conan decides to ask him. Pain? She asked him with uncertainty in her voice. What is it, Conan? The Akatsuki head returned. She walked a little closer to him and held her weight on her palm to his desk. Is there a problem with the Nine Tails? You seem hesitant. He stopped immediately what he was doing, which startled her slightly. Everything's fine, Conan. No need to worry. He's just the strongest one is all. He gave her an assured smile, but she wasn't buying it. You think you can hide it, but I know there's S. Everything's fine, Conan. He shouted with more force than he wanted, which made the paper angel wince from the sudden noise. Well, if you ever need anyone to talk to, I am here, Nagato. She told the man while giving him a sad look. I know, Conan, I know. Pain replied breathlessly. He got up, walked over to the wall-sized window, and began looking out into the rain as if something was there. It seemed like he wanted to talk about it, but he just didn't have the heart to. Conan could feel his sadness radiating from him. She knew something was hurting inside of Pain. A new anguish that made him second-guess a couple of things. Maybe it was something she could help with. They have been friends since they were kids, so there shouldn't be anything that they couldn't tell each other. However, there was something that he didn't want to reveal to his friend, which left her slightly confused. Finally, she concluded that nothing else said could change his mind about it, so she asked one final question. Need me for anything else, Pain Taisha? She asked reluctantly. You're dismissed, he called. Yes, sir. The purple-haired Akatsuki responded, walking out of the door. She turned her head one last time to look at Pain, who was still gazing out into the rain-filled city lost in thought. She then lowered her head slightly and softly closed the door. == and flashback == After she remembered that, she felt like a total idiot. All of that time she had to figure it out, and she felt completely oblivious to it. Then her gaze turned back to Nagato. Her friend from umpteen years was dead. Her last friend from the trio, which now consisted of one, was dead. The realization finally hit her. Then for the first time since the war, she began to cry. She slumped to her knees and pushed her hands to the floor. A tear or two rolled from her cheeks as she continued to lightly sob. She didn't know what to do anymore. Her friend Nagato was head of the organization ever since Yahiko died. She could continue as leader, but there was no reason to continue a society that had no purpose anymore, since the previous owner defected himself before he passed on. She sobbed even more each time she thought about his death. Naruto watched her sulk in her own misery, and started to feel sorry for the lowly Rinnegan. He didn't know what to do for Conan since she was once the enemy, but something told him that deep down inside she too was human just like him. He walked over to her feeling the need to console her because he has been there before, and he knows how it feels. Then she began to shout hysterically. Keep away from me! She began worming her way to get farther from him. Conan, I understand how you feel. How? Shut up! You understand nothing. That last word had so much disgust in each syllable that it spat from her mouth like acid. Naruto tried to move closer, but she still wormed even farther until she reached a wall, continuing to sob with her face turned in an angle that blocked Naruto's view to see her cry. Stay away! Conan yelled, making Naruto wince. He knew she really didn't want him to keep away from her, but she really wasn't the type he would just up and hug either. He didn't know her too well, but Nagato did tell him to take care of her, so he went for second best. You think I didn't cry when Jiraiya-sensei died? I don't think that pain will ever go away. Jiraiya-sensei was my godfather. He began to feel enraged the more he thought about it. It was something he wanted to get off his chest for a very long time. He could not believe he was actually saying it, but there he was on autopilot, speaking whatever his heart felt now. He taught me almost everything. I wouldn't be alive right now if it wasn't for him. She still sobbed on the wall, not saying a word, which made Naruto vent even more. He slapped his hands on his face from the frustration, then screamed. I just killed my cousin. My last family member I will ever know is dead. I'm alone just as much as you are, damn it. He then kicked a stone across the cave, making it ricochet from the wall until it landed several yards away. After that response, Conan looked up at him. Naruto was actually crying again, but his face wasn't sad. No, he had an enraged air about him now, something she had never seen before, which frightened her a bit. Try living with no family your whole life and knowing everybody hates your guts. It'll give you a good kick in the teeth. That scenario seemed familiar to her. Then she remembered Nagato and his life. The sudden revelation brought Conan wide-eyed again. Nagato and Naruto weren't too much different. Nagato lost his parents in the war when he was young. The Rinnegan he had made people shun him for what he was. Then she reviewed Naruto. From what she knew, his parents died when he was a baby, and everybody shunned him for the QB sealed away inside of his body. Her mouth then dropped open upon that fact. You're right. Huh? Naruto responded. He didn't think it would stick to her this quickly, so it threw him for a loop. You are absolutely right, Naruto Uzumaki. She got up from her position using the cave wall to prop herself up from the floor. She wasn't crying, but the tear stains and running mascara proved she did at one point. There are people who have suffered far worse than I have. I shouldn't embarrass myself with such trivial things. She then wiped her face with her palms to remove the emotional stains that covered her cheeks. Naruto's demeanor changed toward her after that. Noticing the way she was now, it made him finally realize that war does things to people. It was almost as if she was a scared child in an older body. He then sauntered himself over to the ramen and gently placed his left hand on her shoulder. Look, Conan, I know it hurts, but there is no reason to beat yourself up about it. The only thing you can do now is keep moving forward, you know? She dared to look into his eyes and saw a fire swelling deep within those pools of ocean blue. The same fire someone she once loved had at one point, and just for a split second, she thought it was this person. An unnoticed smile grew on her facial features. Her smile was not enough to show appreciation for Naruto's attempt to console her, but just enough to show she concluded in her mind about something. Well? Naruto started scratching his cheek with his index finger, breaking eye contact by embarrassment. I could ask if you could, I don't know. Join Konoha or something. That statement broke her ruminations. The sheer thought of her joining the Leaf seemed preposterous. She was an S-rank criminal who was in the most feared organization of the land. Her smile faded as she shook her head in rejection. As sweet as the offer sounds, I don't think I can. She lowered her head and moved a few feet from Naruto. But Conan, I could tell them that you changed your mind about your ways or you helped me W. No, Naruto, I just can't. She interrupted, staring him in the eyes. If I tried to leave to your village, they would only ask for my execution. Naruto stared at her in disbelief. She seemed like she wanted to go. He could see the sadness in her eyes even though it wasn't apparent at the moment. Nevertheless, even though there was sadness, her lips seemed to say something else to reject the boy. But... No buts. Conan retorted, disrupting his sentence again. Now if you'll excuse me, I have matters to attend to. She turned to leave the cave, only to receive an angry look from the blonde nin. But I'm supposed to protect you. Naruto burst, clenching his fists. Conan stopped dead in her tracks. A gasp entered her lungs as once again, another thing about this boy reminded her of Ihiko. The orange-haired ninja had said that to Conan one last time before he died. The girl was very distraught about the death of her teammate, since she did have a crush on him after all. But after Nagato replaced him as Akatsuki leader, either one of them spoke about it again. The purple-haired nin then looked at Naruto, who flustered, looking for an answer. Not like that. I meant, Nagato told me to protect you, so. His sentence cut itself short as she walked over and gently wrapped her arms around him. It wasn't an affectionate hug. It wasn't even a friendly hug. It was just a simple hug of compassion. Just as soon as he got used to the feeling, she quickly pulled back, making sure to signal to him that it was not a pass. While her arms came from around his chest, she held out something to him. Flowers? The blonde nin asked. Conan was holding a bouquet of origami flowers. Naruto had never seen anything like them before, so he was a little curious. It's a sign of friendship and trust, Conan told the boy before he grabbed them. He eyed them studiously, alternating between her and the flowers. I can't go with you, Naruto. I have another village to look after, she continued as the ex-Akatsuki began to take her leave. Naruto fumbled quickly, trying to think of what to say. Will I ever see you again? She turned her head to eye him. A smile came over her features as she did a shunshin by paper from her spot, leaving an anxious and confused Naruto. Chapter 2, Retrieval. It had been nearly 3 days since the great revival of Konoha. Since the day Naruto found out that he was the last Rinnegan user. This came as a shock to him, and caused him to reflect upon his life, and what he really knew about himself. To be honest, he hasn't been acting as himself ever since he came back to the Leaf Village. Sure, he enjoyed the celebration after his return to Konoha, but the celebration seemed hollow. Should they really be having a victory party from the death of his cousin? Most people, who were either hammering walls or cementing floors, stopped immediately what they were doing to greet the savior of the village. As he walked through town, the village acknowledged cheerfully to the Uzumaki, either giving him a pat on the shoulder or telling him simple words of encouragement. A lot of times, there will even be little kids that would encircle him and ask him to play. Sometimes he would agree, but most recently he began to decline them, saying that he was too busy at the moment. He really wasn't busy at the time. He was just in no mood to join the children in their time to fool around. Ichiraku wouldn't be built for another day or two, so he scuffed his feet all the way to his newly built apartment that was in place of the original. The entire village contributed to his apartment by making it slightly bigger than the original. There was an additional room and an expanded kitchen. Even the bathroom saw an increase in size as it nearly doubled in width, leaving plenty of leg room to walk around. He unlocked the door and slowly trudged inside. The scent of fresh paint and newly cut wood filled his nostrils as he walked through his recently acquired home. He looked to his left and right and saw the brand new furniture and food that loaded his house. The new food piled to the ceiling with ribbons, cans, condiments, and many different types of homemade food. All of this food would take him a whole week and a half to eat even a fraction of it. Honestly, he started feeling overwhelmed by the amount of attention. Something you wouldn't expect from the supposed #1 hyperactive ninja everyone claimed him to be. He could also understand why the people were so giving. The people were indebted to him and had to repay him somehow for saving their lives. So with nothing else to do, he sat down and took a rest on his new sofa. He placed his palm underneath his chin and stared out of the wide window that overlooked the street. People were still busily working on other buildings. Seeing the people doing this made him think of an anthill. Even though the anthill gets destroyed, the ants always come out and rebuild as if nothing ever happened. Then his attention fell on the origami flowers. He placed them in a vase and put it on the windowsill the day before as a reminder of the alliance he and Conan now share with the leaf and rain. Alliance, huh? He asked, looking at the blue flowers. He twiddled them between his index and middle fingers, staring at them blankly. Give me what I seek, Toby/Madara asked the half-beaten girl. You will gain nothing but death by fighting me. Conan looked at him, clenching her arm, trying to staunch the pain. Her body tingled in agony with each breath she took. The chakra reserves in her body depleted her energy to move too vigorously, as it was a chore to even keep on her feet while she stood there encompassed with paper. Toby/Madara came for Nagato's body to simply steal the Rinnegan and obtain the secrets and uses of the ability, but was welcomed with a deathly encounter with the blue-haired ex-Akatsuki. I will never let you take him. Her fury began to overweigh her safety, but she didn't care. As long as she kept her friend away from the hands of the grabber, she would risk her life to make sure nothing was disturbed. Fool! Do you know who I am? He bellowed. I don't care who you are. I will die before I let you take him. A fire burned in her eyes as she said that. Her will was flaming fiercely. The orange-masked man looked at her for a few seconds, and then smirked under his mask. So be it. He formed a few hand signs and released an unavoidable fireball jutsu. It went so fast that Conan couldn't get out of the way even if she wanted to. The flames surrounded her body and burned her skin, causing her to scream in excruciating pain. Her final resistance was overrun as she fell limply to the ground. Toby/Madara looked at the girl, and then placed his eyes on Nagato with delight. He released his space-time jutsu and sucked in Nagato's body to another dimension by his Sharingan. Just when he was about to leave, a quick figure made an attempt to attack Toby by ramming through the man with a spiraling sphere of chakra. The masked man went intangible as the figure went straight through him, causing the Rasengan to explode on the ground, forming a crater with dust and debris taking the air. Toby looked in the direction the person resided and saw a figure standing on the opposite end of the room. Conan staggered her head to look up and saw an orange blur appear in front of her. Her facial features softened slightly once she realized who it was. Naruto? She asked weakly as the boy guarded her. Sorry it took me so long, Conan. The blonde nin told her unwavered. He was steadily leering at Toby/Madara, making sure the Uchiha didn't make any early starts. The orange-masked Akatsuki stared at the boy. He felt something different about him, as if his power increased twofold. This feeling, Madara thought, still receiving glares from the Konoha. This boy. This power. How did he get so much stronger in such a short amount of time? He looked at the boy again, and this time his eyes lingered onto Naruto's. What? Madara thought out loud. What is this? Their eyes interlocked each other's gaze as Toby found himself staring into the boy's eyes. The Rinnegan. Madara then, for the first time in a while, felt a little fear for his safety. The orange-masked man knew he was no match for Naruto in his current state, as Toby did not have the Rinnegan yet. He needed a viable excuse to make his leave, because if the Akatsuki made one false move, the show was over. He looked to Naruto and calmly spoke. It is not our time to fight, boy. Toby answered, taking baby steps away from the Konoha. He already accomplished his objective, so there was no need to fight the blonde. Then with a wispy sound, he disappeared by using his space-time jutsu. Naruto clenched his fists, but let it go, as he thought he would never be able to catch Madara now, or he didn't want to get into a place where Madara had the advantage and could easily take out the blonde nin. The Rinnegan faded from his eyes as he turned his attention to Conan. She had fallen unconscious from the chakra consumption, and burn marks scattered all over her body. Her cloak was torn in many places and her hair was slightly singed on the ends. Blood fell from her mouth and dirt marks littered her body as well. A melancholy emotion overtook his features. When he looked at her, the sight of a nearly lifeless person laying on her deathbed, it made his stomach cringe. No one should have to suffer like this. Don't worry, Conan, I'll get you somewhere safe. He hefted her bridal style and found her to be a little lighter than he thought, but shook that distraction as he dashed for his life. Conan felt weightless as she lay there, letting her consciousness roam freely. She felt as if she had a fever and couldn't get up because she was too weak. Her fingertips felt cold against her face as she basked in the cool sensation it gave her. Then to her left, a shadowy figure came over and laid a cool rag on her forehead. She calmed even more and let out a relaxing sigh as the rag permeated the icy feeling through her forehead. She looked over to her right a little and saw a spiky-haired shadow. The silhouette looked over her with a solemn face, like he was hoping the girl would wake. The figure seemed like he knew her, but her roaming conscience made it seem like she knew him as well. Conan tried to get a better view of the boy by turning her head more in his direction. Just then, her senses suddenly fell sharp as she remembered who he was. She began to slightly tear up as she called his name. Yahiko! She shouted, tearing out of the bed. Ignoring the dropped rag, she wrapped her arms around the figure, who accepted without hesitation by embracing the girl. She sat there for a moment, continuing her hug and silently sobbing. A minute or so passed as the figure started talking. He seemed hesitant, but needing to say something. Conan-san? The shadow asked. I'm glad you're happy that I saved your life, but do you have to hug so tightly? Her thought processes terminated as she slowly drew her head up from the figure's shoulder. She knew whose voice that was all too well, as in her arms sat a confused and flushed Naruto. She recalled what happened, and not a split second later, she jerked away, as a slight blush filled her cheeks from the already somewhat feverish face. I am sorry. I thought. Never mind. Her lips pursed as her sight fell on the bed. Naruto looked at her, and then looked at his arms. That feeling he felt from Conan when he held her was something he always wanted to feel. He had also wished to know what it would feel like to be loved like Conan seemed to have showed to him. For the moment, she seemed to be in a state of longing for the boy, which left him feeling a little sad about the sudden jerk away from the girl. If only he could wrap his arms around her again. Wait a minute! What am I thinking? GYH. Pull yourself together, Naruto, he said, shaking his head. He then pinched and pulled his two cheeks apart to try and erase the memory and thoughts that began to plague his mind. You don't like Konan-san? You can't. She's like way older than you. Just remember, you still have Sakura-chan to worry about. Yeah, that's right. Naruto-san? Konan asked quietly. HM? Naruto glanced back at her, repressing any memories that floundered in his mind. Where am I? She returned in the same tone as before. Oh, well, we're in Konoha Hospital, he replied cheekily. Konoha! She exclaimed. But how? Well, he started while scratching his whisker marks. It's a long story. Flashback Tsunade sat in her recovery bed in the Konoha hospital. After fighting pain, she seemed to have fallen into a coma from the long and painful fight that fell in the village. Her thoughts were a little hazy about what actually happened, so if anyone asked her about what took place, she wouldn't give him or her a clear answer. When she awoke in her hospital bed, Shizen and many others filled in the details and what occurred previously. To say she was surprised that Naruto defeated pain was an understatement. She was thrilled. It seemed that Naruto was filling Jiraiya's shoes, not only by becoming a sage, but also in his personality as well. Depending on how long you are around a person, you tend to become more like them. In Naruto's case, he was almost a spitting image of Jiraiya's persona when the sage was younger, minus the perverted side. But she didn't think on it for too long, as the Godame had a major headache that throbbed in her frontal lobes. It was a headache that made her want to smash her face with a hammer to get rid of the sensation. To see the nine-tailed Jinchuriki burst through the door only made matters worse. Hey, Granny Tsunade! I need your help! He screamed as he roamed to her bed. Naruto? What's the meaning of this, barging into my room like a madman? The Godame asked, a little irritated. The headache made her more irate than she would have been normally, but Naruto merely shrugged off the attitude by answering the reason why he was there. Well, you see, I have this problem. He fidgeted. Well, I have this friend who is seriously injured and I need to get them to a room to be healed as soon as possible. The Hokage looked at him like he was slightly idiotic. Usually people ask her for more king-like favors, as in doing a mission or asking to retrieve something of major significance, not something this mediocre. Why are you asking me? If someone is injured, then take them to the medical nin. You don't have to ask my permission for something like that, she replied, bothered by the seemingly stupid scenario. That's the problem. If I tried to bring this person in, the medical nin might reject her treatment. Tsunade shot a questionable look to the boy. She was sort of intrigued by who Naruto had in his mind. It also made her a little nervous because the medical nin usually heal anyone except enemies of the nation. Who do you actually have, Naruto? Her voice dropped lividness and had a more serious tone. She went straight to the point, keeping Naruto from beating around the bush. Well, if I tell you, you have to heal her, promise? The blonde nin asked, almost pleading. It doesn't work that way, Naruto. Now tell me who it is. Tsunade snapped, causing the Jinchuriki to jump. Naruto cast his head downward, and then reluctantly strolled over to Tsunade, making sure that no one except her could hear. Specifically keeping wandering Anbu ears from eavesdropping, he started to whisper. Conan from the Akatsuki. What? She yelled, that echoed through the whole place. Anbu quickly filled the area, trying to figure out what was going on. What's going on, Lady Hokage? Is there an intruder? No, you idiots, leave this room at once. This is a matter between me and Naruto here, Tsunade interjected. The Anbu felt a tad disappointed, but left as quickly as they came, making sure not to enrage the Hokage. She kneaded her forehead, letting out a sigh as she did so. This was making her head hurt more than necessary. Naruto was always good at giving her a hard time, and it seemed like he was doing it again. This time she was interested why he wanted her rehabilitated though, so she started a barrage of questions. Why do you want her healed, Naruto? Does she have good information? She asked, a little confused. It's not every day that someone wants an enemy restored to their original status. Naruto shook his head furiously. No! She's a friend now. She's not even with the Akatsuki anymore. Tsunade lowered her gaze. She felt bad for Naruto as he was still a teenager who didn't fully know the rules. Look, just because she left the Akatsuki, it doesn't mean that all of her actions toward the Leaf Village are forgiven. Naruto frowned at that statement. I know. It's just that Nagato told me to take care of her. I didn't know any other way than to bring her to the place that is the safest to me. Konoha. He told her softly. Wait a minute. The Hokage interrupted. Nagato told you to take care of her? Naruto looked at her again and replied quickly. Yeah, he trusted me with that request, and I have to live up to it. So can you do it? He was getting riled up from his words just thinking about it. The more he sat here, the closer Conan was to death, and he had to idly wait by. She could be dead right now and he wouldn't even know it. Tsunade was unaware of the anger and continued to ask more questions. Well, why would he want you to protect her? He knew you were the enemy. Naruto then clenched his fists. Because Nagato and I came to an understanding with each other. He trusts me. Can you heal her? He also gritted his teeth from the dragging on this conversation did. But that still doesn't make any sense that he would trust you. You were the Tsunade was cut off as Naruto finally had it. Because he's my cousin. He trusts me. He finally screamed, causing a great panic from Tsunade. The Hokage's eyes widened intensely as she gained a view of Naruto. He was staring heatedly at her now, but that wasn't the reason why she was wide-eyed. She looked into the Jinchuriki's eyes and saw the 2 violet circles on each iris. She gained a full view of the Rinnegan Naruto now possessed. Her speech became hoarse as she felt a spell wash over her, but she automatically regained her composure, feeling the need to say something. The Rinnegan? She choked out. The Godame was at a loss. She just received information that she never knew, and now it seemed that Naruto now obtained the Rinnegan as well. Yes, Naruto started. His last gift to me was the Rinnegan. He gave it to me right before he died and entrusted me with the gift to protect his last best friend and find true peace. His gaze faltered as he found himself looking at the floor. And that's what I'm going to do. I don't care if people hate me for doing this, because if they were in my shoes they would do the same thing. So, are you going to help me or not? Tsunade was speechless. Things were jumbled in her head, and she couldn't think clearly. Maybe it was the headache that caused this mishap, or maybe it was all of this new information that she never knew in the first place. It's not like anyone could give her a plausible answer. She tried to find something to say to the blonde-haired Jinchuriki, only to open her mouth, not say a word. It stayed like that for a few more seconds before Naruto turned his head to the door. Fine. If you won't help, I will find someone who will. He said his final words and went for the door. Tsunade felt she had to say something, so she shouted his name. Naruto! What? He retorted lividly, turning his head to her direction. Well, I can't do it because I am still in the hospital, but I think I can get someone else to help you. What made her change her mind was never really clear, but Naruto seemed to have gotten through to her in some way. Tsunade didn't even know what words were coming from her own mouth. It almost made her dizzy by the event that was taking place, as seeing Naruto this way seemed totally unlike him. He was usually happy and carefree, a little arrogant in some way too, but never hot-headed. The last time she saw him this way seemed to be when he was trying to bring her back to Konoha. Naruto had to fight Orochimaru along the way. He was mad that day too, but it looked like he only gets short-tempered when he is protecting someone. That's one of his better qualities. She thought deeply, but then automatically continued her response to Naruto. Ambu, report. She yelled, summoning the cloaked characters from the front door to the hospital room. Yes, Lady Hokage. The ANBU guards replied in unison. Bring in Harino Sakura. Tell her to drop everything immediately and come to my room. It is an emergency. She answered forcefully. Yes, Lady Hokage. They replied again in unison. They both instantly disappeared by Shunshin, leaving Naruto and Tsunade alone again. You're helping me? Naruto turned back to the lady, who gave him a pitiful look of some sort. Yes. I don't know why, but I trust your decision, Naruto. She felt complacent with that answer as she scanned the room. Don't worry. I will have a room secluded specifically for her in this infirmary so no one harms her. Tsunade responded shortly after. The look on her face changed as her eyes lingered to the ceiling with an annoyed gesture. It's not going to be easy explaining this one. When he heard the Godame's robust statement, it made him feel like a weight had been lifted off of his shoulders. Thank you, Tsunade-sama. The Hokage blinked a couple of times when those words spoke from Naruto's mouth. She had never been spoken to so formally by him before. It was almost unnerving to hear the maturity from the blondine. Yeah, I want a better explanation of everything that took place in your fight with Nagato, so don't forget. She finalized before Sakura and a few ANBU appeared. Yes, milady? Sakura asked, completely oblivious to Naruto's appearance. The ANBU quickly disappeared afterward from a signal the Hokage passed to them. Sakura, I want you to accompany Naruto and do whatever he asks of you. No questions asked? Tsunade started. But Lady Tsunade. Sakura burst before she received a raising hand from the Hokage. I don't want to hear it. The Sannin interjected. This is something that has to be handled with utmost importance. Whatever you were doing previously has to be done later. This is a matter between life and death. Tsunade told the girl unwavered. Sakura looked over to Naruto, who seemed like he wanted to run in whatever direction possible to do what Tsunade was asking. He had an ache in his eyes that wasn't really apparent unless you knew him for a long time. Sakura has known him for the last 4 years of her life, so it was not like things he felt would just slip by her. Concern washed over her face as she felt worried for her friend. Yes, milady, Sakura finally replied. Naruto couldn't hold it in anymore. He sprinted out of the door and ran to the desired location at breakneck speeds. Wait! Naruto! Sakura shouted only to get no response from the blondine. Naruto was in his own little world. He couldn't hear or say anything, since the only thing he was worried about at the moment was laying on the Konoha hospital rooftop. It was somewhere inconspicuous so no one would dare touch the person, or even bother to look. It was getting harder for Sakura to keep up because Naruto was still running and didn't want to stop or showed any signs to. She tried calling him several more times, but the boy simply ignored her. Once they reached the roof, Naruto took a sharp left and veered into a corner of the building, dodging around vents and air conditioning units. He finally stopped and kneeled down next to a larger vent that had nothing around it. Sakura was confused, but only for a moment, as Naruto dispelled a genjutsu to reveal a beaten and tattered Conan lying next to the vent. The ex-Akatsuki was barely breathing and looked as if she were clinging on to life by a single thread. Naruto, is this? Sakura started, but stopped once she saw the Jinchuriki's face. He had a look of contempt to the girl as she lay there helpless. It was as if he was thinking hard about something. Then, without changing his gaze on the blue-haired woman, he asked Sakura a question. Can you heal her? Each word seemed to cut through the air like a razor. He was dead serious about this. He really wanted an enemy of the nation healed. He didn't even really know this person too well, but he would heal her with no hesitation? She looked at him like he was doing something stupid and received no glares from him as his eyes were still fixated on the Rinnegan. Naruto, you can't be serious. She is the enemy. Why would you wash? She abruptly stopped as she saw a tear fall from the boy's cheek. Because I promised a friend. The boy replied hoarsely. Please, Sakura, can you please heal her? His gaze did not leave the blue-haired girl's face. Sakura looked at her friend and then looked at the Rinnegan again as she contemplated for a second or two, not really knowing what was going on in the boy's head. Alright, Naruto, but we're going to have to remove her Akatsuki cloak and any other identifiable items, if we want to do this without any problems, she answered to the blondine. Naruto lightly nodded his head as he watched Sakura. Konan no longer had the light blue origami flower on her head, which may have fallen off previously from her encounter with Toby, so Sakura went for her Akatsuki cloak instead. She pulled off the Rinnegan's cloak to reveal attire unseen. She pulled the red and black cloak to reveal a dark blue zip-up robe that began zipping right above the navel and flared out around her waist. The robe also had no sleeves and left her back bare, allowing easy mobility. His eyes followed Sakura's movements as she continued unclothing the other woman. The missing cloak also revealed skin-tight pants that matched the robe in color, with a wrapped pouch below her hip. Of course the clothes she wore were torn and dirted, but they were ignored as Sakura went up to remove all of Conan's piercings starting with her lip. Once she was through with that, the lifeless girl offered no resistance as Sakura finally removed her belly button piercings as well, leaving open holes on her bruised but fair skin. Now, Sakura started, I will only restore her enough to keep her alive for now. The rest of the healing will have to be done in the hospital. He made a silent agreement as Sakura then gently placed her hands on Conan's body, taking the proper steps any medical ninja would be required to do in extreme conditions. Naruto watched as a chakra with a greenish glow began quivering around the medic Nin's hands. Her eyelids fell as she examined the Rain Nin's damage. She has a couple of ruptured organs with 4 broken ribs, and one of those ribs has lodged itself into her heart, Sakura announced sadly. If I pull it out now, she will bleed internally. So, what do we do? Will she live? Naruto quietly asked in a tone not usually heard by the pink-haired girl. Well, I can heal her ruptured organs and treat her burns, but we need a medic team to do the rest. Even with all of the things we know now about healing, it is kind of hard to say, she finalized. After taking a breath, she continued. All right, here goes nothing. Then with that, she began to heal the ex-Akatsuki. Naruto fell silent as he resounded what Sakura told him. Conan was way more abysmal than he thought originally. The Rain Nin he was told to protect could actually die and there wouldn't be anything he could do about it, but she couldn't die now. If he learned anything about his fight with Nagato, then he would know that no matter what happens, always have hope. That was what Naruto believed to begin with, so what made him change his mind now? Nothing. Nothing at all. His attitude altered slowly as memories flooded his head of the struggles he went through as a kid. All of the trials and tribulations he faced kept beating him down and wanting him to stay that way, but Naruto's determination made him rise against every factor that was laid upon him. Sakura stole a glance of his face change as he stood up. She could see the look in his eye. After that revelation of what he originally stood for, his face changed from one of sadness to one of serious fortitude. She'll live. I just know it, he responded out loud. Of course, it wasn't really known whether or not she would live, but the boy didn't lose optimism. He was highly confident in his answer as he stared at the blue-haired girl. Sakura looked at her good friend, then glanced back down at the lowly Rain Nin. Naruto. What do you see in her? She thought apprehensively as she continued her treatment. Conan's face slowly improved from its previous painful expression to a softer, calmer fashion. The burn marks also faded gradually as Sakura continued her mystical palm technique, now keeping her focus solely on the ex-Akatsuki. A few moments later, the pink-haired medic Nin finished her treatment. I've done all I can for now. She started while lifting herself from the roof. The rib will have to be done in the hospital because it takes more than one person for a job like that, okay? He mutely looked at her, and then turned his observation back to Conan. A slight smile grew on his features because of the noticeable improvements that were shown on the character's body. She now looked somewhat happier from all of the restoration that took place. Then, without hesitation, he picked up the blue-haired ninja gingerly the same way as before and started back into the hospital. Naruto? Sakura asked with a reached hand, but was once again denied recognition from the blonde-haired boy. Her eyes wandered on the blonde ninja for a few moments before she heaved a sigh and followed suit. The pitter-patter of feet echoed off the hospital walls as the duo wandered aimlessly for a room to place Conan into. It kind of angered them that they did not have an escort, because they didn't know what room they were supposed to go to, that is, until a couple of ANBU appeared in front of them by Shunshin. This way. One of the black-cloaked figures replied sternly. Naruto and Sakura looked and nodded at each other in silent unison, then trailed behind the 2 Black Ops members. They all reached a room at the end of another hall to the right, and were welcomed with an operating table and several other medic Nin quietly waiting for their patient. It seemed as though the Hokage had kept her end of the bargain, so Naruto felt a little more appreciation toward the Sannin. There were also 2 other ANBU inside the emergency room, probably there to see that the recovery makes a success without any tampering or secret assassination attempts. Naruto slowly walked into the operating room and placed the Rinnegan's limp body carefully on the table. Not even a moment later, a few medic nin began to operate on the ex-Akatsuki. Sakura then quickly filled them in on what she did and what was wrong with the woman before one of the other medical nin walked over to both Naruto and Sakura and calmly shooed them out. "Don't worry, we'll take it from here," she replied softly to both of the young leaf nin, closing the door behind their exit. And flashback I see, Conan said quietly. They had just finished a hospital lunch as the blonde Jinchuriki slurped up whatever he had left of his soup after he finished his story. She looked down and noticed the bandages wrapped around her figure. She was almost mummified from the percentage that covered up most of her body. Most of these bandages seemed to be covering her recently burned areas as well, even though she was healed earlier, maybe because the skin is fresh and far more sensitive than her skin was before. Her eyes fell on Naruto, who gave her a foxy grin in return. It seemed that Naruto went out of his way to stay true to his promise that he made to Nagato. Even though she was sort of an enemy to him still, he tried his best to revive her and live up to his older cousin's wishes. Maybe I can trust him, Conan thought in her mind as she reflected upon previous occurrences. He seemed to be way more trustworthy than she thought originally. I don't understand him at all. He even revived an enemy of the nation at his village's expense. It doesn't make any sense, but maybe it would be a good idea to get to know this boy as well. Chapter 3: Unstable Establishment. Maybe I should get to know this boy, she thought as she turned her head to the blonde nin. Naruto-san. HM? He replied back to her. His face was still cheeky, but it also had a look of interest as well. How long have I been in this infirmary? She answered not even a second later. Oh, you've been here, going on 3 days now? Naruto responded, answering his rhetorical question and hers. 3 days? Conan asked herself. She has been in Konoha for 3 days, and no one has started a riot or a mob demanding total annihilation of the girl. She was an Akatsuki member. Didn't they want her dead? How is this possible? She asked in complete denial. The question caused an awkward look on Naruto as he turned sheepish and began rubbing the back of his head. Well, he started but then began fidgeting. The village doesn't know yet. Only a handful of people know you are actually here, but they can't tell anybody. Not until we know exactly what to do about the situation. He finished, gazing around the room. Was all she could say about that. It seemed as though her life was spared for the time being, but then another thought struck her. Nagato. The blue-haired girl whispered, receiving a look from Naruto, who was clearing his ruminations. Huh? The blonde ninja asked as he didn't quite hear what she said. Nagato. Where's Nagato? Did you save him from Madara? She started back louder than ever. Naruto looked at her, then dropped his eyesight to the ground forlorn. Conan automatically knew what the answer was from the boy's gestures alone. Don't tell me, she asked the boy before it caused her to sink low on her bed and clench her fists. Damn it, she began, I had everything planned to defeat him. I was ready for whatever he threw at me, and I failed. Her voice began to quiver as she continued her rant. I went through so many scenarios in my head, I even calculated timing between tactics, and I couldn't even protect my best friend. Her voice cracked and tears began to well up in her eyes. She had worked hard to prevent the kidnapping of Nagato's body, but all she really achieved was knowing that she was too weak to protect her last friend from the clutches of darkness. Naruto looked at the girl plainly. A feeling of guilt washed over his body as he thought about what had previously occurred because he also failed at getting Nagato's body back. Just the thought made him want to beat himself up after causing another pain to someone. He then remembered what the older Uzumaki told him once Naruto received his Rinnegan. Take care of Konan for me. Blame me, the blonde Jinchuriki told the woman. She looked at him with widened eyes as he glared upon her. What? I was the one who let him get away with his body. I had a chance to save him, and I blew it. His face showed signs of anger, but he still kept a serious tone. Hit me. He pointed to himself with his thumb and lowered his defenses in front of her. But I don't she started, but was immediately interrupted by Naruto. I said hit me. His eyes still gleamed with seriousness. Don't put the blame on yourself. Blame me instead. She slowly raised her hand and curled it into a fist as she thought about everything she hated. All of her loathing was going directly into her hand as she finally built up enough strength to hit the boy. Naruto braced for impact as Conan's fist came hurtling towards him. The blonde then shut his eyes, hoping that it wouldn't hurt, only to feel nothing. A few seconds passed as he slowly opened his eyes again. I can't do it, she replied in a hoarse whisper. I can't blame you for what happened. Her fist fell to her side as she lost all means to slaughter the boy. Lost for words, Naruto just stood there. Yet again, he didn't think that it would click to her as easily as it just did. Maybe he was underestimating her? If I told myself you did it, then I would be lying. Her gaze faltered back to her bed as she continued, it wasn't your fault. It was his. Madara's. Such distaste spewed from her mouth every time she talked about him. If words could kill, he would have died 1,000,000 times over. Look, I'm sorry I can't bring him back, Naruto began, pacing around the room, but I will keep my promise to Nagato. I promise I will make peace with everyone and make people finally understand one another. I will become Hokage. Konan quit her self-loathing and curiously observed the boy. He turned to look at her, then gave her his trademark grin. She couldn't help but smile slightly at the young leaf nin before a certain Hokage came through the door along with Sakura. Tsunade gave her a once-over before speaking, I see you've made a full recovery. The blue-haired nin sized up the Godame as well before speaking and let her true emotions fade for the moment. I see you have as well, she said without much emphasis. Yes, well, I can handle my own, Tsunade continued, but I did not come here for idle chat. I came here for another reason altogether. Then why are you here, Granny? Naruto asked, slightly confused in the matter. I was just about to get to that, she said, gaining full attention of both Konan and Naruto. Her eyes then looked at the ex-Akatsuki. The reason I am here is to get you tested. We clearly can't have an enemy of Konoha living here without any clarification of non-malicious intent. A living here? Konan shouted abruptly. I didn't say I was joining the Leaf Village. Tsunade shot her an evil glare. You are in no position to argue. Naruto saved your life and brought you to this village, and it was because of him that I have decided to spare your existence as well. Konan threw her eyes to her bed and reflected silently, not really knowing what to say. I could just sign for your execution here and now and be done with you, but you could prove to be a valuable asset to this village, being as how you have trained under Jiraiya, who was one of the legendary Sannin, such as myself, and you are a former member of Akatsuki nonetheless. That is why, henceforth, you have been disregarded as the S-rank nukenin you once were. You are now known as Conan of the Leaf with probation rights. Lady Tsunade, Sakura stated questioningly, is it really a good idea to enlist an Akatsuki as a leaf nin? Tsunade turned her gaze to Naruto, who was staring at her with a slight smile, then turned her attention to Sakura. If Naruto believes in her, then it wouldn't hurt to give her a shot. I've already talked to the council and they have fully agreed to allow her stay as long as the probation is in effect. It wasn't easy though. The pink-haired girl looked at the Godame cautiously as a sign that she really didn't know if it was the right choice. Tsunade sighed and turned her view to the concerned medic nin. Don't worry, she whispered, I'm sure there is a good reason why Naruto wants to do this. She then looked at the blonde and switched to the blue-haired leaf nin, even if it doesn't make any sense. She finalized to Sakura before continuing her original response to Conan. There will be clothes sent to this room for you to change into. Afterwards, A and B will arrive and you will immediately go to the interrogation chambers for your cross-examination to see if you're actually hiding something. Tsunade turned for the door and shifted her head to match eyes with Conan. God help you if you are. She then walked out of the room with Sakura trailing behind, taking her final glance as well before closing the door behind them. Conan slumped in her bed in defeat. It seemed she had no choice in the matter anymore about where she could go or what she could do. If she tried to escape in her current weakened state, she would only get caught and put to trial on instant treason. Things would not go well and it would only mean the end of her. Well, I believe you'll pass, and no sweat, Naruto assured the new leaf nin with his wide smile. She looked at him and saw the warmness etched across his face. It caused her to barely smile again to the boy, and she couldn't understand it. There's something about him. Something I can't describe. What is this feeling? She mused a couple of more seconds before Naruto started walking away. Naruto-san, where are you going? Oh, Naruto started. Well, Captain Yamato wanted to see me. He told me after I got done in the hospital, I should see him immediately. Oh, Konan silently added. There was obviously a hint of unease in her voice, and the Jinchuriki noticed it. Don't worry. You'll do fine. You're not like the others, and I can see that, Naruto added with a thumbs up before making his final leave. The door clicked softly as silence enveloped the room, leaving Konan alone on her bed to reflect. Naruto hopped over a few buildings and darted through various people until he reached a single building on the other end of the construction mess on the opposite side of the village. It was dull in color and lacked any enthusiasm in the creativity department. It didn't have a door, as it only had two flaps in front of the doorway slowly wafting in the breeze. It was probably used previously for medical treatment, seeing as how it had stretchers laying around it, and various other medical equipment. Now it was abandoned, as Konoha had a hospital again. Well, this was where Captain Yamato wanted to see me, he replied to himself unenthusiastically. Naruto pushed the flap around his body as he made his way into the room. The room was a little stale and still looked messy, with many needles and bandages lying around. The only thing that seemed new was the bodies of the ninja who occupied the building. Yamato noticed the boy and not too soon responded to his arrival. Ah, I see you've made it. Yo, Kakashi responded to the boy, who only looked a little puzzled at the masked man's greeting. Wait a minute. What's Kakashi-sensei doing here? The blonde asked as Yamato walked over to the Jinchuriki. Kakashi looked at the boy, then at Yamato before he let out a smile underneath his mask. Well, it's no big deal, but we heard from Lady Tsunade that Nagato did something to you before he died. We just want to make sure nothing affects the Kyuubi's final seal is all. That's right, Naruto, Yamato stated. Whatever he did to you could affect the seal and ultimately release the Kyuubi from its cage. That is why we have to check your body for anything abnormal. Oh yeah. Naruto banged his hand in his other palm. I haven't shown you yet, have I? Yamato looked at Kakashi before the masked man spoke up to the blonde Jinchuriki. Shown us what? Not long after that, Naruto concentrated for a second before he finally yelled out, Rinnegan. The blonde's eyes shot open and revealed two purple circles replacing each iris. Both Yamato and Kakashi stifled a breath as they were taken aback at the sight of the new Rinnegan eyes that replaced Naruto's original sky blue eyes they had grown accustomed to. Our Rinnegan? Kakashi started. How did you? It was Nagato's final gift to me. As it turns out, he was my cousin, he replied happily before he remembered his death. It caused Naruto to downcast his eyes for the moment. Naruto. This is unbelievable. Yamato looked deeper into the eyes of the new Rinnegan wielder. The purple gleamed in his irises from the light bulb on the ceiling. It wasn't a full Rinnegan yet, but it was still just as intimidating. Kakashi, can you help me out here? Oh yeah, sure thing. The masked man was still amazed at the sight, but lifted his Hitai to reveal his Sharingan. Naruto stood there for a few seconds before Kakashi spoke up again. Well, it's not an illusion, there's nothing behind it. It's not a trap either, so it's the real deal. The wood expert was dumb-stricken. This was actually the first time he got to see this type of eye up close, but turned to a more serious facade after he realized something. Yamato looked down, then smiled slightly. It seems the Uzumaki bloodline carries the Rinnegan after all. Huh? What do you mean? Kakashi brought up before receiving a look from Yamato. Well, back when I was a Chunin, there was this rumor going around the adults that a Rinnegan user was actually found. I don't remember much, but the higher-ranked ninja also said something about the Uzumaki. I was young back then, so I really didn't understand what they were talking about at the time, but now that I see Naruto here, the heir to the Uzumaki bloodline, I realize that both of those stories were actually one story. Kakashi thought coherently about it. Oh yeah, I remember hearing about that too. That was a while ago though. I guess when they saw that Kushina didn't have it, they gave up the idea. So, are you saying that I actually have a Kekkei Genkai? Naruto asked as if he were a child getting candy. Yes, it seems so, Yamato replied before giving a glance at the Jinchuriki. Alright, Naruto. Let's see if it alters your seal or not. It was very quiet in the lone recovery room that Konan resided in. The Anbu already came to her room and gave her the clothes she was supposed to change into only a half-minute after Naruto left. They seemed to fit her perfectly, which kind of threw her off for the moment, but then she realized that her other clothes were missing, so she assumed that they knew her sizes from them. She then walked into the small bathroom that was on the other side of her room. A sigh escaped her lips as she looked herself up and down in the bathroom-sized mirror. What was she wearing? How could she wear something like this? As if irony was taking a crack at her itself, she came dressed in something that seemed to humiliate her. The same outfit that many other ninja wore who tried to stop her, she dressed in as well. From head to toe she bore the greenish jounin vest with a black long-sleeved turtleneck shirt underneath that had the orange Uzumaki swirl on the left arm. She also wore the same black skin-tight pants that every other leaf ninja wore as well, bearing the shuriken pouch on her right thigh. Then to finish it off, her sandals were that of a black color as well, leaving no difference in color change to the outfit. I guess it's what I deserve, she replied woefully. Her gaze faltered as her eyelids lowered. Conan didn't think that she was worthy of these new clothes. Those who wore this vest obtained it through honorable means to their village. I shouldn't wear something like this. The clothes seemed to mock her, and it pushed her into a further state of suppression to the past, making her leave the bathroom because she could not bear the sight of herself. The door opened not long after to her room as two Anbu appeared before her. Follow us, one of them ordered to the blue-haired leaf nin. She nodded silently and walked away with the two Black Ops members. Shortly later she found herself inside a small room with one table and two chairs. Two men were already inside the room and gave her a look of scorn. I see you are in Konoha. What are you doing here? The taller man asked the woman with a sneer. That only concerns me. It is none of your business, she replied in a dull tone. What did you say? The man responded back vehemently, picking her up by her jounin vest. I should kill you right now for all of the suffering that was spread across this entire village. Now, Ebiki. We shouldn't do anything to harm this one, the other man shot back to the angry jounin. Besides, we will find out, soon enough, of her true intent. Oh yeah, that's right, Inoichi. A slight chuckle escaped Ebiki's mouth, followed by a release of the woman. The blonde Yamanaka motioned for her to sit down after that little show. She sat in a chair opposite to the other man, and stared unemotionally to the blonde jounin. Inoichi looked to her for a moment before he started to speak. Alright, I'm going to have to put you to sleep before I can perform the procedure. Hopefully you will cooperate with me so there won't be any trouble. She shook her head in agreement before he started talking again. Okay, allow me to start, and not long after that, she unknowingly fell unconscious to a sleeping jutsu. Now, let's see what you are hiding, Inoichi stated as he placed his hand on top of her head. Flashback Who is this and why is he even here? An 8-year-old Jihiko asked to the young girl about the same age. He's called Nagato. He looks so alone and pitiful outside that I told him to come live with us. Conan replied happily to the orange-haired boy. But he even brought a dog, sheesh. Nothing here, Inoichi thought as he read over her memories. But it seems Nagato and Conan are long-time friends. Let's go to another one. I'm staying. Jiraiya told his teammate Tsunade, who responded outraged. What? You can't be serious? Well, at least until they get on their feet. The younger Jiraiya shot back. Conan looked at the older man. She was a little worried about his stay, but he seemed to be real nice. In a way, he almost seemed like a father figure, especially after they got used to him being around. Oh. Hoppin' planks? What are those? Conan asked the white-haired sage. Oh, he started. Well, they're to show who's here and who's not by the side it has been flipped to. If it's red, it means you're here. If it's white, it means you have left and can hop in any time. A grin etched across the leaf Nin's face as he waited for the kids to get the pun, but that failed when the young girl asked another question. But why do we need these? Conan asked, uncertain of the uses it pertained. Well, this area is still dangerous, and you'll never know when they will come here and try to attack us. The sage answered realistically. So you're saying that if it's red, then one of us has probably been captured, and when one is white and we're all here, then that means there is an enemy disguised as one of us? She asked Jiraiya in a state of confused understanding. That's very inspective, Conan. Unlike a certain other. The sage eyed the orange-haired boy studiously. Hey, I knew what you were talking about, sort of. Yahiko retorted back. Nothing here either, but Jiraiya-sama taught them? Inoichi mentally disregarded the thought for now. Where are your darker thoughts? Why are you here? He then delved deeper into her mind. Kill me, Yahiko told Nagato with a definite voice. And oh, don't do it! Conan screamed to her Rinnegan-wielding partner at the top of her lungs. Nagato! The orange-haired man shouted to a stricken teammate. It seemed as though Nagato was in a difficult situation. He was given an ultimatum to either kill Yahiko or Conan gets killed by Hanzo. If you don't do it, this girl dies. Hanzo replied to the shaken red-headed Akatsuki. Not a split second later, a solid thud was heard as Yahiko impaled himself with Nagato's kunai. Both of you have to stay alive because you are the Messiah, Yahiko replied through pained breaths. I really believe you. And nothing more was ever said as Yahiko fell to the ground in one last dying breath. Yahiko! Conan shouted, but the man never answered or got up. A serious rage enveloped over Nagato as he lost all meaning within himself. Without a moment's haste, he began to slaughter everything in his path because nothing mattered anymore. It eventually led to a summoning that took the souls of everything his beast touched, causing the Rinnegan wielder to become paralyzed in the process by the rods that shot through his back. Nagato! A forlorn Conan called to the boy, but was ignored because of his insanity that consumed him. So, you were the real leader to begin with, Hanzo stated, crossing his arms to the crazed man before him, who knew you were the one who had the Rinnegan this whole time. Not long after that, Nagato screamed and forced his summon in the enemy's direction only to miss his opponent by Shunshin. That's pretty tragic, the blonde Yamanaka thought to himself. Now I see how they came to be. What a hard way to go through life. I still don't have what I need though, so I need to keep searching. And with that, he went even further into her memories. I knew you'd be here, Conan told the man full of hatred. So, I'm assuming you won't tell me where Nagato is? The swirling orange-masked man asked in a thought-so voice. I've waited for a very long time to end you. Madara, the blue-haired girl, answered back forcefully. Toby/Madara looked at the woman with a smirk under his mask. Just so you know, I won't go easy on you just because you were one of us. Oh, one question though, do you think Naruto Uzumaki is that special? He asked in a menacing voice. Conan did not falter as she pierced through the man's one-eye glare with her own. Naruto is the embodiment of light itself. That's why every time he meets somebody, they carry the flowers of hope. And with that, Conan threw a few paper shuriken at the form of Toby. Well, I may as well tell you a few things about your friends, before you come to your imminent death, he replied coldly to the girl as he went intangible, completely evading the shuriken. Conan fell surprised to his intangibility before he brought his point back up. First of all, I was the one who made Yahiko form Akatsuki. The blue-haired girl widened her eyes in disbelief. And second, I was the one who gave Nagato the Rinnegan, he concluded to the dumbfounded girl. So, really I just wanted to get my eyes back. But you were just a foolish girl who didn't know anything, but now, you know where Nagato's body is hidden, so I just need to detain you. All of this new information led into a fierce battle between the two Akatsuki as Conan did the paper angel technique to further her plans to see to his demise and failure. The altercation lasted for a very long time before it came to a screeching halt. Toby/Madara had somehow used a move that completely shut off his other eye underneath the broken orange mask in consequence, but this move allowed him to warp space and time to fuse reality and imagination. This attack caused Conan to be put in a deathly encounter with the masked man. He stabbed her in the back from behind with a pointed bamboo sword and pushed her off while he started talking again. There is no peace, there can be no hope. Nagato only wanted to feel better about his existence. Oh, but you'll see him soon enough, then you can spend all of eternity lamenting your decision to listen to Naruto's garbage. As soon as he said that, the endless rain that fell over Amegakure dissipated until it completely stopped. What's going on? It can't be, Madara stated out loud as his surprise seemed to arise in his words. The blue-haired ex-Akatsuki felt it as a sign and gathered enough will to continue. Yahiko's and Nagato's desire for peace has not left this world. I have faith in Naruto as well, because he will be the bridge to peace that everyone has desired, and I will be the pillar supporting that bridge. She then raised her arms to make one last attack on the broken masked man. It seemed as though Nagato's death made her make an important decision in her life. I don't care if I am blown away in the process. I will st-. Before she could finish her sentence, a death grip was placed on her neck by the evil man. You didn't think I'd let you do something like that, did you? She could feel the life slowly fading from her body as Madara continued talking. I will wilt your flowers of hope and fade the bridge to oblivion. When I am finished with this jutsu, your life will be no more. But before I do that, you will show me where he lies. She dared to look into the man's eye as the jutsu took place. And no. I can't. No. And flashbacks No. She screamed out in the open, jolting both Ebiki and Inoichi. A small tear fell off of her cheek from the reoccurrence, as she breathed heavily in nervousness. The Yamanaka immediately pulled his hand away as he remembered the memories of that final encounter, and shook his head at the situation. What? What did you see? Ebiki asked the other man, who slowly got up from his seated position. She's clean, he answered solemnly, looking at the floor. As it turned out, Madara was behind everything. Ebiki's face faltered at that statement. What? But I thought he was dead. I'm not sure, the blonde started, but I am positive that she wants to help us. Conan didn't say anything, but her facial features backed that statement, Inoichi proclaimed. Ebiki couldn't believe it. A former Akatsuki actually wanted to help for a change. It seemed to make him actually go a little easier on the woman. A rare sight indeed. Ebiki thought out loud. Well, since she passed, I guess we have to send her to the Hokage. She did tell us if the Akatsuki was approved to take her to her office. I suppose so, the blonde replied indifferently. Let's go. Conan got up from her seat and walked with the other two men who proceeded in front of her. 2A and B guarded from behind, maintaining standard protocol. A short while later, they arrived at the Godame's office. She was assorting new files before her on the construction projects of Konoha. Ah. I'm assuming it went well? Tsunade asked in a rhetorical sense. Yes, Lady Hokage, Inoichi responded, and we also have information. Well, the Hokage started, what are you waiting for? Spit it out. Oh right, well, it seems the man known as Madara is the one behind everything. Ebiki stated, causing Tsunade's eyes to widen in amazement. Right. Madara is also known as Toby, the man in the orange mask, and Inoichi followed up while closing his eyes and sighing. What? The man in the orange mask is Madara? Tsunade lost her words, but Madara should be dead. I said the same thing, Ebiki stated to the Hokage. Right, well, I will let the others know. In the meantime, there is something I have to discuss with this woman. Yes, Lady Hokage. They both replied in unison before they left the office. The room seemed to quiet itself once the two women were in the office alone. Tsunade walked over to her window that overlooked the village and gazed out in silence. Conan felt it was not in her place to talk, as she was technically the prisoner. There was nothing for her to say. She caused a lot of damage to the leaf, and now they had somewhat captured her as a repayment to the village. It remained quiet for another moment or two before Tsunade began to speak. There were these 3 kids, not even old enough to live on their own. We were coming back from a mission and my partner noticed them. I didn't know what he saw in them, but he really wanted to teach them. He wanted to teach them how to protect each other. Conan listened to the story quietly as the Hokage continued. I didn't really think it was a good idea, but he saw something in those kids that I didn't at the time. So he left me and my other teammate to help these kids learn how to defend themselves. Tsunade's posture shifted to her other leg as she crossed her arms, still eyeing the village. Days turned into weeks until one day, I received mail from my partner. He wrote me a letter to keep me updated about his well-being. He would tell me how he was doing and ask me the same. But the longer he stayed away, the more he began to tell me about those kids. Eventually, whenever I received mail from him, that's all he would ever talk about. He would begin to go on and on about it in the letter that it would fill 5 pages or more. Conan's eyes widened slightly after hearing that, but she still said not a word. Those weeks turned into months and months turned into years until, finally, he returned home. When I saw him again, I was ecstatic. Everyone was happy upon his return. But when I looked at Jiraiya's face, I could tell something was wrong. Tsunade shifted her eyes onto the blue-haired Leafneen with a sense of sadness that seemed to radiate from them. It seemed those kids really grew on him. Conan couldn't deny it. Even though her emotions and past were buried from the long and arduous years of pain and fighting, she still had feelings. It seemed that she thought of Jiraiya as a father, although he wasn't there for very long. If anything, Jiraiya also thought of her as a daughter he never had, but he passed away after that fight with pain. Now, the only people who had personal ties to herself and Jiraiya were Naruto and Tsunade. Could I ask you one question? The Sannin asked to her only other companion in the room. After receiving a silent agreement from Conan, she continued. What made you change your mind about Naruto? Conan's throat seemed dry as if she couldn't say anything. She tried her best to clear her throat to speak. After a second, she began, because Nagato believed in Naruto and, if Nagato believed in him, then I will believe in him as well. I will support his will and well-being to ensure peace in this world. It is what Nagato and Jiraiya-sama would have wanted. The Hokage looked at her slightly pleased. That is what I wanted to hear. Tsunade then shifted her attention to her desk and opened a drawer. At first, I thought you were plotting something, but yesterday Naruto told me that he was the one who found you, so it's obvious that none of this was planned. She then pulled something rectangular from the drawer and began to look at it. It might be a while, but you may redeem your name just yet. And with that the Godame threw the rectangular object toward the blue-haired ninja, who caught it with ease. The rectangular object was wrapped in a light, white silken material folded in an elegant manner. She pulled the folds apart, and revealed something that took her breath away. A leaf Hittite. It matched her clothes with a coal color, and the leaf metal forehead protector gleamed impeccably in the light, showing no scratches or signs of wear and tear. It was new. It was a fresh start, which was something that felt unreal to her. The headband caused a sad smile to creep across her face as she stared at it incredulously. Naruto is busy right now being checked over by his captain, so you will have to help the village rebuild instead, part of the council's orders, but the rest of your free time will be on something bigger. Your main objective? Tsunade tossed her eyesight over to Conan before she continued, is to protect and help Naruto master the Rinnegan. Conan didn't think too hard before she made a decision. Almost as if she was unaware she did it, Conan closed her eyes and wrapped the new Hittite over her forehead. She then twisted the fabric tails into a knot and pulled forcefully. Afterwards, she opened her eyes to reveal a newfound determination. Yes, Lady Hokage. Chapter 4 Pariah. It looks like you're okay, Naruto, Yamato replied to the blonde Jinchuriki. As a matter of fact, it doesn't change anything at all. It's safe. Naruto lowered his mesh and orange-clad jacket, feeling a little happy that it was real. He actually owned a true Rinnegan and he never knew it. Hey, Captain Yamato? Yes, Naruto? The wood user asked, amused. Do you know anything else about the Rinnegan? He questioned to the Jounin. Yamato put his index finger to his chin as if deep in thought, then let out a sigh. I don't really know much else about it. We've never actually had one to study, so we don't really know anything. Sorry. Oh, Naruto sighed as he hopped to his feet from the medical table, then a thought struck him. Wait a sec. I think I know someone who knows a thing or two about it. Thanks Kakashi-sensei and Captain Yamato, but I have to run, he replied with a wave of his hand and dashed for the door. Naruto, Kakashi resounded in his mind, he just keeps getting stronger. Just like you wanted as sensei? His thoughts reminisced on the yondaime as he watched Naruto's final moments in the room. Naruto jogged through the streets at a steady pace. It was a sunny day and people were still building away at the village. Since there was nothing left but the Hokage monument, they literally had to build a city from nothing. It didn't seem as much of a trouble to the villagers, for at least they were doing something to occupy their time. Naruto still received smiles from others as he passed by them. There would even be 1 or 2 girls around the same age as him that he would pass who, when he faced them, would turn their heads away and giggle. Since he never really saw what it felt like to be liked by another girl, it sort of creeped him out because he thought maybe they were planning something or making fun of him. Ignoring whoever and whatever, he continued. He was trying to reach the Hokage building because he wanted to see if Conan made it out fine. He wrapped around a newly built building and passed a few more people until he started hearing angry shouting and cursing. A few people seemed to be enraged about something as he gained ever nearer to the noise. It wasn't until he turned a corner that he saw a crowd of people arranged into an uneven circle. There seemed to be a fight that broke out, and people were encouraging it by keeping it contained in the irregular shape. After listening on the fight for another second or two, he could make out a few phrases the people were saying. Kill the bitch! Why is she here? She stole a leaf ninja's clothes. Probably trying to sneak in. Go back to where you came from, demon. Naruto got a little worried for this person. Did they really hate whoever this much? She couldn't have done something too bad. After those thoughts ran through his mind, a small break formed in the mass of confusion that enveloped this character in just enough time so he could see who they were fighting. It wasn't a fight. No, it was far from it. This was attempted manslaughter. There were several people on this one person, and there were even others trying to get their hits on the poor figure. Who were they thrashing on? It was someone who Naruto promised to protect. The person they were beating down was none other than the blue-haired ninja that he saved a few days ago. Conan. Anger boiled in the pit of his stomach as he saw the woman lying on her back getting hit in the face with the villager's fist and 3 or 4 others kicking her in her sides. It was a horrid sight to the blonde boy as feelings came back that he hadn't felt in a long while. Without really thinking, the Jinchuriki blazed through all of the people and threw a right-handed cross to the one attacking her face. This, in turn, sent the abuser flying several feet away from the circle and everyone else to stop what they were doing. Conan weakly looked up to the boy and saw the anger in his eyes, almost as identical as the last time, and Naruto. Does anybody else want to hit her? The blonde nin asked to anyone and everyone. All of the villagers stepped back a little at the sight of the Jinchuriki before they barraged him with an array of angry shouts. Why are you defending her? She's an Akatsuki. She doesn't belong here. She needs to be dead. Just like me, right? Naruto screamed as his head turned to one of the villagers, revealing his red vertically slit eyes. Shouldn't I be dead too? I am the Jinchuriki. The villagers stepped a few more paces back before the villager began to speak. Well, you don't want to harm us and we realize that, but that woman was in on the whole entire destruction of the village. But people can change, right? An unknown voice said that came from behind Naruto and surprised everyone. To Naruto's relief, the village's ruler appeared behind the boy, causing the whole scene to emit peace. Granny? Naruto started but was cut off by the Godame. Don't worry, Naruto. I'll take it from here, she replied firmly. The villagers once again began an upheaval and noise, clearly in rejection to the blue-haired woman's presence. Tsunade listened with a half ear to what the villagers were saying before she raised her hand to clamp them down. As soon as they pacified, she sighed softly. Look. I am sure all of you are upset about this new occurrence, but let me assure you, there is a perfect explanation for all of this. The villagers remained observant on the speaker. Naruto was looking over Conan and helping her stand on her feet. Yes, Tsunade continued, she was a member of Akatsuki, but she has been captured. Now you are probably also wondering why she is wearing normal leaf attire? A few people nodded as a sign of agreement. Well, the council and I have decided that, since she partook in the annihilation of the village, she should wear what many of our fellow ninja have worn to remind her of the past, and her misdeeds that followed to the leaf's destruction. With that said, she will stay here and forever live her life in the shadow of the leaf, helping rebuild the village and whatever else we ask of her as penance for that sad day that fell upon our land." The Hokage looked over to the newly assigned leaf Nin, who looked away as a sign of guilt crossed her features. She could see the sadness without having to really look too hard. All of the villagers seemed to take the Godame's statement at face value because a lot of them smiled viciously at the price the woman had to pay. "That is why, from this moment forward, no one is to harm or maim this person because she will prove herself to be of worth, understand?" She concluded with that and watched as the villagers grumbled and removed themselves from the area to continue what they were doing previously. There were a few villagers who still glared at the blue-haired ninja with distaste before they walked away as well, leaving only Tsunade, Konan, and Naruto alone. The female Sannin then took sight of the other two standing there. She went to say something but felt slightly dizzy, so she closed her eyes and heaved a sigh. "Thanks, Granny," Naruto sighed as he gazed down at his feet. "I know, Naruto," she replied to him with a slight smile. "Just be glad I was thinking about you," she stated before opening her eyes and turning to make her leave. It was never really clear who she was talking to in that statement, but before anyone could ask, she disappeared by Shunshin. A cross look came over the boy's features, but only for a moment as he shook it off and looked at the ex-Akatsuki. "Come on, Conan," Naruto told the blue-haired ninja with a smile, "let's get you cleaned up." She looked over to the boy and reflected silently, thinking about everything that had just taken place. Naruto went out of his way to protect her again. He even went so far as to hit someone else in his own village, but was it for his promise or for something else? It seems he still has some buried feelings about his past, she thought quietly before taking his offer and following him. A little while later they reached Naruto's home. He pulled out a key from his pocket, unlocking his door and pushing it open to reveal the inside. It was nearly the same as last time except some odd and end things were lying on the floor. They both walked into the living room and Naruto helped his guest sit on the couch that overlooked the street. He left her alone for a moment, and only a moment before he walked back in the room with a couple of rags and a bowl of warm water. He also carried a bottle of some unknown brand of ninja pills that was halfway filled and a roll of bandages. He sat down beside her and began to take a look at the damage. Her hair was a little disheveled and small cuts made their way onto her face. She also had a black eye and a small amount of blood was on her lip, which seemed to have left a trail on her face, but was dried over time. "Why didn't you defend yourself?" Naruto asked as he continued looking over her face. "Well, violence is not always the answer. Also, I do believe that I would have serious repercussions if I touched anyone in your village. Killing someone on my first day is not a very good impression, is it?" she replied nonchalantly, looking down. He laughed lightly at that. "No, I guess not." He then went for the rag and began dipping it into the warm water. He pulled it up a few seconds later and immediately stopped. "Wait a second. What in the hell am I doing? Then again, she hasn't said anything yet, so I guess it's okay." The Jinchuriki sank the rag back into the lukewarm water, wrung it out, and slowly inched his hand closer to her face. He came just a hair away from making contact with skin before a hand grabbed his wrist, knocking the warm rag to the young woman's lap. "I can do this on my own. I do not need your assistance," she replied sharply with a facial reaction that matched. The only reason he got as far as he did was because she wasn't paying attention to him. "Oh, sorry." "Ha ha," he replied wryly. Now he felt like an idiot. Of course, she wouldn't let him do that, I should have known. She began to wipe her face with the rag softly, closing her eyes to the sensation it gave her. Naruto didn't really know what to do anymore, so he thought quietly to himself. Actually, he was thinking about the villagers and how they reacted to her. They hated her, loathed her, wanted her dead. He couldn't help but remind himself about the way they used to act to him when he was younger. This feeling was something that he never wanted to experience again because for the longest time, he was the villagers' beacon of hate. Even through his academy years, people hated him. He thought the only way to get attention was to act out and become a nuisance. He did bad pranks and jokes all over the village. He even marked all over the Hokage monument, but people noticed him. It didn't matter how he got noticed back then, just as long as somebody was watching him. The only reason he ever got any friends was because he got stuck on a team with people who had to deal with him. They eventually realized not to judge a book by its cover and finally became friends with the boy. Years passed and finally everyone recognized Naruto as a person, not a demon. But now the villagers have someone new to hate. Someone to blame everything on. A new pariah, which was something Naruto had been previously. Maybe the same thing will happen to Konan. He thought in a sense of hopefulness, maybe people will see her like they see me now. He brooded silently a few more moments before a soft voice interrupted him. Naruto-san? Yeah? He asked curiously. The blonde was a little disappointed that he was cut short in his thoughts, but was willing to talk. There was something I have wanted to ask you ever since I have been here. She then stopped rubbing her face and looked at him with interest. How did you know Madara was after me? It's like you knew I was in danger. Well, he started while gripping his chin and closing his eyes as if deeply concentrating. I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? She asked him irately from his stupid answer. Hold on a second. Let me explain. He then positioned himself correctly on the couch, pushing his hands on his legs. A close of his eyes signified that he was deep in thought. Well, when I was home, something happened to me. I was watching the villagers rebuild their homes from this window. He pointed to the one behind the couch they were sitting on. Everything seemed fine and it felt like another day. Well, then I began to reminisce about the reveal of my true heritage and Nagato's death. Conan's attention was still laid upon the boy, keeping movements to a minimum as to not disturb his thought processes. Around that time, I started to look at the flowers you gave me and I started to feel sad. While I was doing that though, the flowers, they started wilting. But origami cannot wilt. She rebuked, followed by a continuation of his explanation. Yeah, I know, that's what I thought too. I thought it was just a genjutsu you did to the flowers that make them seem realistic, but then, it got even weirder. Conan looked at him confused in the matter and silently urged him to resume. Seconds later, a sigh left his mouth and he spoke. After they wilted, they caught on fire. Caught on fire? She was taken aback at the statement. The blue-haired Leaf-Nin didn't do any of that and felt like Naruto was just telling a lie to make it convincing, but then again, the way he spoke so calmly about it made him seem like he was telling the truth. Yeah, I don't really get it myself, but they did. I was a little worried about it, and I didn't want to think anything more. But... The Jinchuriki then lowered his eyes to the floor. Then, I started to feel this pain. It was in my chest and I felt like I was dying. But when this feeling continued, the only person that popped into my head was you. It was like I could feel your anguish and my thoughts were telling me you were in trouble, so I just dashed out of the village by myself and the feeling led me to you. He finalized with a smile. Conan thought for a moment. It was a lot to take in because stuff seemed to not add up. How could Naruto know she was in danger? His rinegan couldn't have been activated during the time, so a small grin appeared on her face as she came to a conclusion. Nagato did that. That seemed to confuse the poor boy. Huh? What do you mean? He's not alive anymore, so how could he do anything? Well, then he must have done something while he was alive. She responded as if trying to give him a clue. What could he have done? Naruto asked abruptly. The only time he could have done anything was. How could he not have seen this before? It should have been obvious, my awakening. Exactly, Conan answered with finality. It seems Nagato has passed his locator link to you. Locator link? What do you mean? The Jinchuriki asked. She then heaved a sigh. Nagato used a jutsu on all of his 6 pads to locate them whenever he needed them. By sealing a small amount of chakra into a certain part of the body on the person they want to connect with, the person in charge can submit a small chakra frequency producing a connection with the other person. In order for it to work though, the receiver had to have an antenna to cast and receive the signal, and the person giving the signal has to have one as well. It doesn't even matter how big it is. It could be the size of a hair and still do its job. You can't control a body with an antenna that small, but you can still locate whoever you're looking for. I was the only other person to have a locating link placed on my body, which was transmitted by my lip piercing. She then points to the small hole under her bottom lip, signaling that something was once there. The person doing the jutsu leaves a hint of their own chakra into the other person, so they can always find who they are looking for. It seemed Nagato transferred his chakra locators to you, and since I was the only other person to have his chakra link, you could feel me, but only me. More or less, you unknowingly activated this link while you thought about me. Oh, Naruto replied, scratching his head. I guess that makes sense, but still, how did I receive the signal? I don't have anything on my body. I have one place in mind, Conan said as she got closer to the boy. Naruto felt a little awkward from their shortened distance away from each other as she moved closer to the boy, but sort of shrugged it off for now. Turn your head for me, please, she asked softly to him, who then received a turned head from the boy. She looked around the sides of his face, then grabbed his chin and quickly turned his head to gaze at his left temple. Naruto was bemused of her actions because he didn't really know what she was doing, but felt even more creeped out when she started touching his hair, moving it around softly with her fingers. Hey, what are you YOW? Found it, Conan replied as her hand came around his face, unveiling a small shard. Very clever, Nagato. What is that? Looks like a splinter, Naruto told the girl quizzically. This is a chakra rod fragment. This is what Nagato used for you to find me, as in, the little antenna I mentioned earlier. Oh, Naruto mentioned, but it's so small. Conan seemed slightly amused at his reaction to this. Well, yes. Like I said, they can be as small as a hair, but it still does what the person wants it to. Naruto liked the idea. It was very smart to think of something like this, and it got him wanting to do the same. Hey, I should get one of those. Then if anyone ever gets in trouble, I can come in and save the day. You mean like the time that you saved me? The blue-haired kunoichi asked, smiling at the end of her lips. Oh. Naruto blushed about her teasing question. Oh, well, I guess. He laughed slightly as he rubbed the back of his neck. Without any prior notice, Conan wrapped her arms around him again. This time, instead of sympathy, it was one that she needed and desired. Thank you, Naruto. A subtle tear began to descend its way down her face. It seemed she had more going on than he thought. She did so well to hide her emotions when they were in the hospital room that he never really noticed. That was when a melancholy mood placed itself on the house of Uzumaki Naruto. This was the third time he saw her cry, but this time Conan willingly hugged him. It was good to have a shoulder to cry on. Someone for emotional support. Of course, the factor of her being older and barely knowing the boy didn't really matter at the time because he was the only one she could do this to. He had the most tied to Nagato now, and she was in a village that hated her. So who else than the blonde nin that rescued her in the midst of her death? Naruto tried to collect his thoughts before he gently wrapped his arms around her as well. A smile overtook his lips as he began to speak happily to the woman. Don't worry. When I save this world from the never-ending pain, then you won't have to suffer anymore, because I will be Uzumaki Naruto. Hokage of Konohagakure, Naruto let go of his grip and stared at her with pure determination, pointing to his own chest with his thumb. I will make sure that everyone understands one another and peace lives across the land. It is my dream. My goal. My desire. If there is no way to peace, then I will find a way. Conan stared at the boy. She did misjudge him. Yes, his way of thinking about finding peace was childish, but somehow he keeps stepping closer to that ambition with hope, that smile. I understand now. That feeling I felt in the hospital. It was warmth. I have finally realized why Nagato trusts him. He truly is the light to this world. I have faith in you. Another smile graced her features as she wiped a stray tear from her eye, and I won't let anyone interfere. The will for peace has been passed down to you, and I promise on my life and on my friends' graves that I will protect that will and allow the bridge to peace to be built with only the strongest materials. The support that holds underneath will keep that bridge standing taller than all the land, so that nothing evil can ever reach its peak. I promise, Yahiko. Nagato. In that moment, they both looked at each other in a new light that only seemed unfeasible previously. On that day, a new friendship was born between the two which could possibly exceed every other's expectation. Was it fate that these two met? Did they share something that no one else had in the known universe? They seemed to know each other, if only slightly, and were willing to go out of each other's way to make this path to peace probable. It was a mutual feeling, an understanding. Maybe the universe intended this outcome and was correcting itself by allowing this abnormal charade to continue. This didn't seem real. It couldn't be real. But here they were, joined together by an unusual game of chance where the hand dealt in their favor. Maybe this could work. It was only planned from the beginning anyway. Chapter 5, Secrets. Naruto-san, let us begin your training, Konan said as she sat up from her seated position wrapping her arm in a bandage. Somehow, she felt a smidge happier from their little heart-to-heart moment. Oh yeah! Naruto shouted giddily, that's what I was gonna ask you today. Konan questioned the blonde, befuddled, ask what? Well, before I found you, I wanted to find someone to help me with the Rinnegan. Then I thought after a minute and realized you were the only person that was even remotely close to knowing anything about it. But after all of those things that happened today, I sort of forgot, he replied, rubbing the back of his head wryly. Yes, well, we are here now and we don't have much time to waste, Konan replied in a matter-of-fact tone. Madara far surpasses your strength and even my own, but we are about to change that. She then finished wrapping her arm and started walking towards the door. The blonde only stared at her, his gaze deep in space signifying that he was in thought. Naruto-san, Madara is nothing but pure darkness. You, on the other hand, are the child of prophecy. It is said that you will triumph victoriously and make things right in this world gone awry. She then turned to face him in a serious facade. By the time we are done with your training, he will never get his hands on you. I can guarantee it. That response actually lightened his mood a little. A small grin etched across his face as he thought about that aspect. He was actually going to be taught how to use the Rinnegan. It sort of felt strange to him now that he thought about it. He has a Kekei Genkai, a special eye that her friend once had. Now that friend is no more, which makes Naruto the new heir to the special power he now possesses. Okay, Konan-chan. I am ready, Naruto replied cheerily. The blue-haired woman looked at him and her features dropped into a frown. Don't call me that. Huh? He asked, a little confused. You are never to put chan at the end of my name. Understand? She told him in an angry voice. Just because we have to train together for your benefit, that does not mean that we are best friends. But I thought. Well, you thought wrong, she replied with no hesitation. Now let's get going. We do not have much time. She then proceeded out of the door in sort of a hurry. Naruto tried to think as he couldn't figure out what just happened. What is wrong with her? 1 minute we're friendly, the next, she is staring daggers at me. I don't get it. He concentrated for another second or so before he concluded that it would come to him sooner or later. Naruto then followed behind Konan to begin his very first training lesson of the Rinnegan. Another day as the Hokage unfurls, Tsunade replied out in the open at her office desk. It never ceases to amaze me. Tsunade was very annoyed as of late. She had just gotten out of a coma, and the work already piled itself to the ceiling as if it was trying to get her mad on purpose. She had to deal with the unexpected arrival of a former Akatsuki member, which was proving to be more trouble than it was actually worth, but could potentially work into a huge advantage if handled correctly. She had to go through council just to even instate Konan as a leaf ninja. But if the blue-haired woman was willing to help Naruto in any way she could and Naruto felt it best, then there didn't seem to be any reason why she shouldn't do this for her, even if the Hokage didn't want to. It was the way Konan acted towards Tsunade that really tipped the scales in the ex-Akatsuki's favor. The Godane could read people very well, that it was almost a talent because she could pick up a subtle gesture or voice change very easily, just like the third Hokage. That was something that only interrogators were good at. Maybe she should have been a cross-examiner? Easier than being Hokage, she thought with a sigh. She then thought about the blue-haired woman that came in earlier. When she looked at Konan, the look in her eyes and the way she spoke, it was as if she was speaking to another person entirely, if that makes sense. Tsunade could see the loneliness in Konan's eyes, in which her voice didn't betray that emotion at all. Of course, Konan was trying to hide it, and doing a good job nonetheless. But that didn't really matter because the Hokage could see straight through the mask that the paper user held onto for a false sense of comfort. Tsunade could see her sadness, oh too well. Conan was the last one from the trio that trained under Jiraiya all those years ago, and now that all of her friends were deceased, there was no one else there to help the paper user get over her grief. The Sannin felt a little sad for the woman even though she helped in the village's total annihilation. But now that Naruto is around her in the village, maybe he will find a friend in Conan and help her. She seemed to hold Naruto in high regard. I think he's safe for now. While in the middle of her thoughts, Yamato and Kakashi appeared in the Godame's office with a poof of smoke, completely disrupting her ruminations. Tsunade looked over in their direction and put a knowing look upon her face. Well? What did you find out? She then intertwined her fingers and laid her elbows on the table, resting her chin on her hands. Right, Yamato replied firmly. Well, we were a little startled at first when we saw it, but the test came back negative. His eyes are real. Yes, it seems Naruto has acquired the true Rinnegan, Kakashi stated seriously. We do not know what to do about the situation, although we do know that it does not have any effect on the last seal Konaning the Kyuubi. Well, at least there is some good news. Good to know Nagato didn't do anything to him, Tsunade responded with a sense of finality. I found it very odd though, Kakashi started again after a minute's silence. Naruto only has 2 rings on his eyes, but if I remember correctly, the Rinnegan has always covered the entire eye. I've done some research while we were fighting pain and it says that the Rinnegan covers the whole eye, but Naruto's only goes so far as to cover the irises. Tsunade looked to the ninja intrigued by his findings. You do make an interesting point. That is why I would like to continue testing him for further evaluation, Yamato answered without a moment's haste. Things seem a little confusing. And for that reason, I want to make sure nothing happens. Tsunade nodded her head in approval. Right. You have my permission to continue watching him for any unusual occurrences, as it would deem unfortunate if something were to happen to Naruto, the Hokage sternly replied. Something was fishy as things did not definitely add up. What could it be? What was Nagato's purpose? Kakashi then let his eye wander until a hint of blue piqued his interest on the Hokage's desk. There was a folder that was left open revealing a sizable document, and a photo of a person on top. Oh, doing a last-minute Akatsuki report? Kakashi's eye lingered a little longer between the front page and picture before noticing something out of the ordinary. Wait a minute. Is she? That's right, Kakashi, the Godame interrupted. She is a leaf jounin. What? Yamato asked before he looked at the photo with the silver-haired jounin. All he heard was Akatsuki, she, and leaf jounin. He really wasn't expecting what he saw. You can't be serious? Tsunade looked at the document as well before heaving a soft sigh. Look, Naruto was the one who found her. He seemed to trust her after finding out that Nagato was his cousin, and also, she has no ill will towards Naruto because we had Inoichi look into her mind and come up with nothing. Kakashi and Yamato stared, and though as the Sannin continued, I already know what you are thinking. When I first heard that Naruto brought her here, I thought the same thing. I really just wanted to leave here for dead, but Naruto. He had a sense that something was there that no one was seeing. That idiot. He thinks he knows everything. A smile graced her lips as she kept the speech moving. It wasn't until I actually saw her today that I changed my mind. Yamato felt the need to speak after a moment of silence, curious as to what the woman had to say. Well, what made you change your mind? Tsunade looked at the picture again, and then looked at both of the jounin with her smile fading into a sad one. Naruto did. His attitude about everything. Maybe he felt obligated to protect Conan, since Pain, or Nagato rather, told him that he was his cousin. I do not know. You really wish the better for Naruto, don't you, Lady Tsunade? Kakashi asked in a semi-sorrowful voice, but his stature proved he was sympathetic as well. Yes, but I also know that Conan can really help him with his training. She is the only one that really knows anything about the Rinnegan, and plus, on top of that, she seems to trust Naruto to a degree. Tsunade then moved her arms to the desk and turned her eyes to the table as well. What was real strange though was while we were in discussion about it with the jounin leader and the council, Danzo didn't even raise an argument. Actually, he and I were the only ones in full support of the instatement. That only makes me curious as to what he was thinking. I see your point, Kakashi stated as he turned his head to the wood user. Yamato then nodded in acceptance. I guess we really can't disobey the Hokage's decree. Nope, Tsunade replied cheekily, changing her mood in an instant, and that is one reason why I love being Hokage. Yamato was slightly taken aback before he nodded his head again. Yes, Lady Hokage, then I will keep you updated with Naruto. Goodbye. He then did a shunshin, leaving Kakashi and Tsunade in the room alone. Once things died down, Kakashi looked at the Godame and turned his head to the door. Well, since you don't need me for anything, I might as well make my leave. Actually, Tsunade started, I do need your assistance. That made the silver-haired Jounin stop in his tracks. Oh? Yes, I need you to keep an eye on Naruto and Konan for me, she replied, getting up from her chair, but wobbled just a bit after another faint spell washed over her. The coma's after effects were getting to her. So, you don't trust Konan after all, Kakashi replied in an aha tone. The slug summoner sighed in defeat. You're right. We can't fully trust her. Not just yet anyway. She was an Akatsuki member and a person who killed innocent shinobi without thinking twice. But I do not want you doing anything that could interfere with Naruto's training, so just keep an eye on them and make sure nothing happens. Yes, Lady Tsunade, Kakashi replied lazily. And also, it was around 3 o'clock once Konan and Naruto reached the newly made training grounds. The heat was sweltering as it was the hottest time of the day, but that didn't really matter to the Leaf Village. People from Konoha were used to the heat and were still as adamant to continue building their village. Once Naruto showed her to the place he usually trains, she had to stop for a minute to take a breath, laying her weight on a new practice log by her arm. Just coming from the hospital the very same day and doing something like this was risky, but she felt like she had no choice. They would never get anything done in time if she didn't try to pack as much as needed into the lesson. Naruto looked at her anxiously for a few seconds before he grew impatient. Finally, after waiting a little longer, he spoke up. Well? What are we going to learn? Konan gazed at the boy before a frown took her face again. Patience is a virtue. That is what usually gets shinobi killed, is the recklessness that comes from eagerness. You should know that. Anyway, while you are standing there doing nothing, activate your rinegan. Naruto grumbled at the order he received from the blue-haired Jounin and reluctantly activated his rinegan in front of her, displaying 2 purple rings on each iris. That is when she pushed herself off of the log and walked over to Naruto, stopping about 10 feet away. Okay, Naruto-san. Right now, I am your superior. I have listened, watched, and helped Nagato create and perfect his jutsu and skills, so listen closely because I will only say this once, Konan stated, gaining the full attention of the only blonde there. Now that you have acquired the Rinnegan, there are certain abilities that have been added to your skill repertoire. It also means you have gained an upper hand in learning new jutsu, as they will somehow become easier for you to learn. Naruto listened intently as the young woman continued. I am sure you are aware of the Bansho Tenin and the Shinra Tensei from your fight with Nagato's Deva Path? Konan asked before she received an agreement from Naruto. Well, those 2 techniques come with the Kekkai Genkai, just like, an example, how the Manjikyu Sharingan comes with the ability of Amaterasu. Naruto did not know what that was and held his question about Amaterasu until later because he didn't want to interrupt the woman. Both moves are able to control the gravity that keeps us on the ground, Konan continues. To go more in depth, Bansho Tenin is the ability to pull any object towards you at your own free will by channeling your chakra through your hands. The chakra that is in your hands compresses until it creates its own gravity field in a small circumference inside your palm. The compression is so compact that it is generally invisible to the naked eye, which explains why you can't see it. This compression phase is also the reason why there is a 5-second window in both techniques. Anyway, wherever you point your hand while doing this attack, it will automatically be tugged to the source of the force. Depending on how much chakra you compress, the farther or heavier the object you can pull towards you. Oh, okay, Naruto replied with a sense of unusual understanding. Shinra Tensei, on the other hand, is similar to the Bansho Tenin except it repels anything by gravity using the controlled chakra from your hands. To do this, you need to pressurize the gravity compression from Bansho Tenin to a degree to where it becomes unstable. That is when the gravity becomes unbalanced in your palm and it erupts into an explosion, causing a gravity expulsion away from your palm. She gave hand gestures to further explain the process. To do this move requires chakra control in the entire body, as it could prove fatal if your chakra explodes without synchronization. Your body has to be in sync for the impact of the expulsion to not affect it. Also, in order to do the full Shinra Tensei, you have to cast both arms outward and expel gravity from both hands simultaneously. If done correctly, it will create a barrier of disrupted gravity around your body, completely shielding you from any attack, just like what the Deva path used. Conan let Naruto sink that information in for a second before she continued. She was surprised at his level of awareness but quickly realized that his Rinnegan was activated, so she shrugged it off with indifference. Now we shall give you a little practice, the Jounin replied while picking up a random stick off of the ground. It was about a foot long, 1 centimeter in diameter, and weighed no more than an ounce or two. She then threw the stick about 30 feet away from Naruto, who watched in interest. Now, since you already have a jutsu that is similar to this technique in a way, it will make things a little easier. What I want you to do is hold out your hand, aim it at the stick, and concentrate. Imagine your chakra as if you were making a rasengan without making one, but keep compressing it in your hand until you can't see it. Then, once you do that, concentrate on the stick and imagine it coming to you. What? Naruto asked in a shocked manner. How am I supposed to do that? It's hard enough to make a rasengan as it is, so how can I compress the chakra into nothing? Just think, Conan replied in a nonchalant tone, you have the Rinnegan, so it shouldn't be that hard. The Jinchuriki thought for a second before he realized what the woman was talking about. Then, with a simple sigh, he raised his right hand and began to concentrate on the stick. He thought about making the rasengan and compressed it until it became invisible in his mind. Once he did that, he concentrated hard on the stick, trying to imagine that it was coming to him. A few moments passed and then a few minutes passed until Naruto realized nothing was happening. Conan-san, it's not working. Conan looked at him annoyed and spoke, it worked for Nagato, so I don't see why it shouldn't work for you. It was easy to him. He did it on his first try. Well, sorry for not being as good as my cousin, Naruto replied heatedly, still holding out his hand. You think it's just easy to grab something without using your hands? Fine. I will just concentrate on the stick right now because it is just so easy. He then turned his eyesight to the stick and began sarcastically mimicking the pattern to grab it. That caused the blue-haired woman to shake her head, so I pretend to have a rasengan, and then imagine the stick coming to me. Ha! Like that. CHK. A soft pat on his palm interrupted his rant as his gaze faltered to his hand. To his amazement, the stick that he couldn't get just a second ago happened to be a tuck on his right hand like superglue. What the? How? See? Easy. Conan replied with a self-satisfying stare. But why couldn't I grab it just a second ago? The blonde asked in befuddlement. You weren't concentrating with your eyes, the Jounin replied with a sigh as the stick fell from Naruto's hand. You were concentrating with your mind. The Rinnegan is what makes the stick move, not your mind. Oh, well, why didn't you say that before? The boy asked, irritated because he looked like an idiot. Conan scoffed at him. I thought you already knew that. Either way, let's try it again so you get the idea of how the move works. Naruto grumbled more to himself as the paper user picked up the same stick and threw it 100 yards, making its way into the forest. Now, Conan began, you will use the same move you did previously but at a farther distance away. Concentrate with your eyes and aim your hand to the direction I threw the stick. Alright, the Jinchuriki replied as he began to concentrate on the piece of wood. His arm aimed at the stick, intently waiting on its arrival. His concentration made him lose his awareness, as he only thought of bringing the stick into his grasp. It was as if it was just him, and the wood he was trying to grab was there. After another moment, right before he was about to give up, a shuffle of leaves attracted his attention, and something shot out of the woods as fast as a bullet. It came straight at Naruto, whose surprise was short-lived as the stick came to his hand and abruptly stopped, encountering resistance. Once again, it wasn't as hard as he thought it was. It's almost as if the Rinnegan tells him how much chakra to use, Conan thought quietly while she watched Naruto laugh in excitement. It was roughly 6 o'clock in the evening when Naruto and Konan decided to call it a day. She was training herself rather lightly in her jutsu while simultaneously helping Naruto refine his stick-grabbing skills and eventually moved it up to logs roughly 6 inches in diameter and 2 feet long. Konan was impressed while unimpressed at the same time. She knew the Rinnegan helped the user master any type of jutsu, but she didn't really think it was also easier to master the gravity moves. He seemed to get the idea pretty quickly, and it didn't even seem like he was tired. That moves consumes a pretty good bit of chakra, and he has been doing it for the last 3 hours. But then she thought about the boy's chakra and ignored her amazement upon the fact. While walking away from the training grounds, Naruto heard a low growl from his stomach and laughed with a wry smile. Well, I'm hungry now. Ha ha! Konan-san? Do you want to get something to eat? Konan glanced at him, a little interested in his request. I guess I am famished as well. I don't know anything about this place, so you should show the way. Naruto nodded with a slight smile. There's only one place I know where you won't be rejected from. That statement caused her to drop her head a bit. She just remembered that the village hates her. The only problem with this was the fact that she couldn't escape this situation. There was no way out, and it almost scared her. Strange. Why does that scare me? She asked herself in silence. She hasn't been scared of anything since she was a kid, and now the feelings roared its way to the surface, even if it was miniature in her state of mind. Don't worry about it, Konan-san, Naruto told her, which brought her head up in confusion. Did Naruto know what she was thinking? They are nice people, and I don't think they will judge you as quickly as you think they will. Konan widened her eyes about Naruto's reply. No, it wasn't what she was thinking, but it did make her feel a little happier once she realized there was still one person around who didn't loathe her. A slight smile overcame her face, knowing that, in a way, she still had a tie to Nagato. All right. Naruto-san. It had taken a few minutes to reach the building. It was none other than the famous Ichiraku ramen stand that Naruto had grown accustomed to going to on a daily basis. They had just opened up today, and Naruto was getting rather tired of cup ramen. Sure, he ate a little of the homemade foods that stacked in his home, but most of it couldn't fit in his refrigerator, so he had to throw the rest out. Once he pulled over the flap to let himself inside, a young woman greeted him with a cheerful voice. Oh hey Naruto. It looks like you received our message today. Welcome to the new and improved Ichiraku. Naruto grinned at her response and looked around the store and noticed things completely redecorated. It carried the traditional counter seats that people ate from, but everything from the back looked as if it cost a lot of money. New fryers, stoves, and other hardware to cook were littered all over the back of the restaurant. It made Naruto a little happy for the Ichirakus. Thanks, I am Chan, Naruto beamed to the young brown-haired woman. I have someone with me today, so you can put their order on my tab. That's a first, I am, replied cheekily, laying her arms on the counter. Who is it? Are you actually going on a date? Naruto blushed about that statement and rubbed the back of his neck. Nah. Nothing like that. She's just a friend of mine. So it is a girl. Well, where is she? The young Ichiraku asked the blonde anxiously. I want to know who you brought with you. Okay, well, I will bring her in then, Naruto replied before motioning his hand, signaling the other person can enter. Naruto opened a flap for the blue-haired woman who entered with caution. Konan looked at the brown-haired woman who looked into her eye as well. It was sort of nerve-grueling because the paper user did not know whether or not to speak. She was unsure if what Naruto said was true, about how the stand would not discriminate. I gazed at her until finally, a happy smile overtook her features. Hello, welcome to Ichiraku Ramen. Konan stopped for a brief minute for surprise to subside before she returned the greeting and sat down on a stool. Thank you. I will be glad to eat here. Two other people in the stand noticed the paper user's presence and left with a rain check, going out with a look of contempt upon their faces when they looked in the paper user's direction. That didn't go unnoticed by her nor the blonde Jinchuriki. Did I hear Naruto come in? An older voice called from the back to Ayam. An aged man walked into the front of the store carrying a towel wiping his hands thoroughly. His hair grayed with age and an apron wrapped on his body. It was none other than Tochi Ichiraku. His face lit up in delight once he saw the young blonde sitting on a stool with a foxy grin. So it is you. Been a while, hasn't it? Tucci asked the Jinchuriki with warmth. It sure has, and you know what I want, Naruto replied with an enormous smile plastered on his face. Yeah, the usual. The older man replied with a similar smirk, until he noticed the other presence in the room. And who is this pretty young woman? You flatter me saying such things, but my name is Conan, the blue-haired jounin replied with a slight smile at the end of her lips. Well, that's a lovely name, the older man replied with sweetness, and what will you be having? Conan didn't really know what to eat. She wasn't a big fan of ramen for personal reasons, but she couldn't decline Naruto's offer. Plus, on top of that, this was really the only place she could go to eat without having to worry about discrimination so far. Earlier, when they were walking to the ramen stand, they both passed a few restaurants with people inside who noticed the blue-haired woman walking by, and the managers of the restaurant passed evil glares toward her direction. They were stares of killer intent. They meant that she could not go there, and the owners were not willing to negotiate. Breaking from her ruminations, the jounin looked up with concern before it disappeared in a flash. I would like today's special, please. Coming right up. I am, you know the drill. Tucci replied with a smile. Yes, sir, right away, the young Ichiraku replied before going to the back and preparing the food. Tucci looked at the two ninja before him and replied, Your food will be ready shortly. Thanks. I'm starved, Naruto replied before the older man returned to the back and helped his daughter. Things got quiet for a minute as no one talked or brought up anything. Naruto and Konan were sort of in their own little worlds, reflecting on the past and wondering about the future. It wasn't until Naruto decided to say something that made tension fall from the little stand. So, you are a wind nature too? That response seemed to stop Konan's reflecting and she turned to eye him. How could you guess that? Well, Naruto started again. I saw you practicing your origami attacks while I was working on Bansho Tenin, and I noticed that all of your techniques have wind attributes. I never really knew that about you. Yes, while you did not see the full extent of my power because of my condition, I do indeed carry the futon affinity. Although, I am surprised you would bring up something like that, Konan replied calmly, averting her attention back to the counter. Naruto didn't really have to think twice about that statement. I brought it up because I have the futon nature too. You do? The blue-haired woman asked in a bit of shock. Naruto looked at her a little puzzled and lowered his voice to a whisper. You didn't know? I thought all Akatsuki knew about their enemy? While that may be true, Konan replied, shifting her eyes back to the counter, information came rather slowly in our organization. I think the only time we actually found out about your affinity was when you fought Nagato's Deva Path. Heh. I guess that's why I still overpowered Nagato, Naruto replied with a foxy grin. Possibly, but I do have one question, the paper user brought up. How does the Raisin Shuriken work? I heard Nagato commenting about it while you were fighting his Deva Path. He said something about it involving wind, and it seemed to annoy him, so it must have been a rather powerful jutsu. Well, it is a jutsu I worked on while I was in NT Mayaboku, Naruto began while gaining the interest of the woman to his right. Basically, I create a Rasengan with another clone helping me mold the chakra. Then afterwards I begin using my wind nature to encase the Rasengan with wind chakra. Once I do that, I push more wind chakra into the move until the wind blades start increasing in size and rotation. Then once it's ready, I just throw it and watch the fireworks. That sounds complicated and difficult, Konan replied with an odd look of awe. Naruto smiled at her again. Yeah, I mean, I trained a very long time to do that, but the move is still not perfected though. What do you mean not perfected? That seems like a move all to its own. How can something that strong not be completed? Konan replied with a look of irritation. Well, the blonde spoke after a few seconds of thinking. Before I left the hospital for my checkup after my fight with Nagato, they did a scan on me and told me that every time I do that move, it affects my cells to a point where I lose a day of my life every time I use it. It's sort of an issue with that technique. Konan sunk her head a little low after hearing that. It seemed the lifespan problem was universal to every shinobi. It only made her think of her friend even more than she wanted to. I believe you can do it, the blue-haired woman replied hoarsely. Huh? Naruto replied. He could barely make out what she said. I really think you can achieve that feat, Conan replied louder with confidence. You have such a huge advantage already by bearing the Rinnegan. If anything, I want to help you with your attack if I can. Naruto thought about it for a second. Another moment passed by before a grin crept across his face. Sure. I'd like that. And who knows? Maybe I will teach you how to use it. It was really confusing to Conan now. Naruto seemed to really trust her for him to explain how to do a move like that, and even offered to teach it to her no less. But to have someone put full trust in her in only 6 days after their original encounter was a little strange. It was almost like a role reversal with someone she once knew. I knew you'd be here, a voice replied out of nowhere. Naruto turned to look at who was talking and saw a silver-haired, mask-bearing jounin behind him. Kakashi-sensei? What are you doing here? What? Can I just drop by to say hey to a student of mine? Kakashi replied innocently, looking at the blonde. Naruto glared unsatisfied at the jounin. But you already met me today, so this time has to be something else. Kakashi looked over to the Jinchuriki and wandered his eye over to Conan, who was looking back at him with interest on her face. They seemed to be doing fine. Nothing unusual. So, this is the new recruit? I'm assuming you already know my name and I already know yours, so no reason for introductions, is there? He replied with a masked smile. I guess not, but would prefer if we reintroduced ourselves, now that we are on the same footing, the blue-haired woman replied with nonchalance. Kakashi changed his look of happened into interest as he saw Conan reach her hand out in a greeting gesture. Hello, my name is Conan and I am a leaf jounin. What is yours? The silver-haired man looked at her hand for a second before he let out a smile and grabbed her hand with a friendly handshake. My name is Kakashi. Nice to meet you, Conan of the Leaf. I think we will get along just fine. Just as long as you don't get any funny ideas. So Kakashi-sensei, why are you here? Naruto asked, clearly annoyed by the man's disregard of the blonde's question earlier. Huh? Kakashi replied in confusion. I thought I already told you. I like to visit my stew. That's a load of crap and you know it. Naruto screamed with self-righteousness. Kakashi thought for a second, shifting his body position from one leg to the other, then let out an eye smile. It's the truth. If I came here for anything important, you would be the first to know. Well, Naruto replied in defeat, alright. It was nice to see you too, I guess. That wasn't so hard, was it? Kakashi replied with a smile in his eye. Now, I have things to attend to, so I will have to talk to you later. He then looked over to the blue-haired woman and gave her an eye smile as well. Later, Conan of the Leaf. And with that, he started walking away from the two, lifting the flap over his head. He abruptly stopped after the flap left his silver hair and poked his head back in between the flaps. Oh, by the way, both of you are to live together in Naruto's flat. Tsunade's orders. Kakashi then did a shunshin, leaving the couple alone in the restaurant. There was an absolute silence that encased the whole stand, leaving nothing to make a sound. Alright guys. Naruto's usual and today's special. I am, replied, placing their orders on the counter with a smile. The brown-haired girl opened her eyes shortly after and looked at both of the statuesque figures standing in the lone stand. Hello?